Well, welcome to Modern Day Debates, everybody. We appreciate you being here. Appreciate your patience getting started. Not too late. Before we get started, I do want to remind everyone we got DebateCon 8 coming up here in July on the 25th, and then and the 26th. And we're going to be doing these early bird tickets still, probably like the last week you can get it. It's going to sell out for sure. So come out, meet us. James is going to be there. I'm going to be there. A bunch of great debaters are going to be there. And without further ado, we're going to get into some opening statements. I believe Dennis is going to go first, and he's going to give a 5 to 10 minute opening. Pretty fluid. If you want to concede your time early, you're welcome to do so. And then we'll hit Brian's opening after, get into a 60-minute rebuttal, kind of open dialogue, and then we'll go into the Q&A. So, whenever you're ready, Dennis, go for it.
All right. Well, so Trump was a better pick than Kamala Harris. So that's the topic we're talking about today. The reason why I believe that Trump was a far better pick than Kamala Harris is, well, there's several reasons, right? When you look at Kamala Harris's time as vice president, she was one of the most ineffective vice presidents, one of the most feckless leaders that we've ever had in the history of this country. She was a so-called border czar and absolutely failed at that. And then during the presidential election, just basically tried to rewrite her record as the border czar. She was also, I mean, if you just look at her history within the Democrat Party itself, when she ran for president in 2020, she had absolutely no support from the party. She was the first candidate to drop out. They ended up calling an audible last minute when George Clooney ended up writing an op-ed and basically saying that Joe Biden was no longer a viable candidate. So the entire party decided to coalesce around her. Not very democratic of the Democrat Party to do that. I don't think she was the first choice for most Democrats. I mean, it was a very interesting thing to witness play out in real time, because you would see on television up until the week before she was announced as she was, appointed as the nominee. You would turn on CNN or any mainstream media source, you would hear a lot of leftists and Democrat commentators, and all of them were in unison, basically saying that she wasn't going to be the nominee, that she wasn't going to take the nomination, that she was not going to be a good candidate if she did. And then all of a sudden, when she got nominated, everybody coalesced around her. But outside of her record as a border czar, she also had a very strange position when it comes to the conflict in Israel and Gaza. I'm sure we're going to get into some of that today. She had her position often, kind of changed. It wasn't even a nuanced approach. She kind of tried to hold every position at once. The one consistent thing that she managed to do was she distanced herself from AIPAC. But outside of that, I would say she's the perfect example of a corporate politician who stands for nothing and who will just move with the wind wherever it benefits her career. And you see that. You see that she is just absolutely awful when it comes to leadership. She will even hurt her own community when it benefits her. The truancy case in Oakland is by far one of the most egregious cases of bad leadership in the history of California. I would go as far to say the fact that she was enforcing truancy laws in Oakland, and she went as far as this young girl was in the hospital, and she had her her arrested. Absolutely insane. I think that itself disqualified her from leadership, from being in the upper echelons of our government. Right now, she's obviously taking every single major popular position. She's obviously disavowing the Trump's handle of the conflict in Iran. But again, we're going to get into that. I think that there is a lot to say that she would have had a much different approach if we look at her style of governance versus what Trump would have done. I think that Trump's statements during debates were truly prophetic as far as how she would have handled it. She is just a perfect example of weak Democrat progressive leadership. And I think, honestly, it's good for the Democrats long run that she is on the sidelines, because I've even seen recent studies and polling within the Democrat Party itself that they've acknowledged that somebody like that has no ability to win or govern in America. In fact, some internal Democrat polling is showing that they're leaning towards a white Christian male so that they can hope to win this next presidential election. So, I mean, all you have to look at to see how awful of a candidate and a leader she would have been for the country is to look at how Democrats see her, and that's the purest form of indictment. If your own party thinks that you're an awful leader and shouldn't be in leadership, then I think that says it for itself. And that's where I'm going to leave it for now.
Okay, you guys hear me all right?
Yeah, they're
Okay.
just saying that it froze for a second there, but they could still hear the audio. So I'm trying to turn the bit rate down here and double check to see if turning down the bit rate will actually help here.
Okay. Gotcha.
It's kind of annoying. I appreciate the chat being so vocal. Give me 1 second, guys. And then we'll let Brian get into his, just so everybody can be heard properly. Encoder. Okay. This should help a little bit.
Okay.
Might still have a little bit of a lag for a second as it changes. Okay, change. Let's see if my hand movement is working. All right. I think that's a little better.
Okay. You just let me know.
Yeah. I can hear the audio fine on my stream that I'm watching on my phone, and it should be good. Okay. Go ahead, Brian.
Good to go. Okay. So first of all, gentlemen, thank you for inviting me to do this. I love a good debate. Let's get right into it. If you notice, Dennis, this is about whether Kamala would have been a better candidate or Donald Trump. But if you notice, Dennis didn't give a lot of accolades to what Donald Trump is doing. I can tell you, first of all, let me just correct Dennis with respect. Kamala Harris wasn't the border czar. It was Mayorkas. And Kamala Harris in the job of the vice president is not policy making. That's number one. Number two, right now, the situation that we have in Iran, 100% would not be happening if Kamala Harris was the president of the United States. Now, Kamala wasn't my first, second, or third pick. And in a perfect world, I wish Joe Biden stepped down sooner. But that's not what this debate is about. It's about whether Kamala would have been a better candidate. She wouldn't have stolen $175 billion from the American consumers. We wouldn't have these stupid tariffs. She wouldn't have tweeted out, the whole civilization will die tonight. On Easter Sunday, she wouldn't have talked to, said, quote, open the fucking straight, you crazy bastards. I can guarantee you that she wouldn't have rolled out the red carpet for Vladimir Putin, lying and saying that she would have ended the war within 24 hours. She wouldn't have been a puppet for Vladimir Putin and Benjamin Netanyahu. Apparently, Donald Trump does anything, everything that Benjamin Netanyahu tells him to do. We would not have been in this war. She didn't even want to meet with Benjamin Netanyahu. When you look at the economy and you look at where we're headed and where we're going when it comes to inflation, when Joe Biden left office, our unemployment rate was at 4.1%. Higher now. What's lower besides eggs and a few vegetables? Everything else is higher. Gas prices are through the roof. He wouldn't have given the biggest tax breaks to the top 1%. $100 billion Donald Trump gave. And it's why his approval numbers are in the toilet. It's why he's in the low 30s right now, polling at around 20% with independents. Kamala Harris wouldn't have been a perfect president, but she certainly would have had empathy for people. She certainly wouldn't have worn a baseball cap when our brave men and women are coming home in caskets. She wouldn't have embarrassed us on the world stage. People are laughing at us right now. And Taco Trump on Tuesday did it again today. And we can get into that. And I can give you guys examples of how he caved and how he doesn't want the statement out, and he's threatening CNN because Iran has declared victory today. But Donald Trump does not want you to know that. He wants to think that we have won. We're spending $2 billion a day on this war. Let me repeat, $2 billion a day. While Donald Trump has taken Medicaid away from 20 million people, Kamala wouldn't have taken Medicaid away from people that desperately need it, or food stamps, and Kamala would not have started another ill-advised and illegal war. I would have thought that Republicans would have learned from that, dating back to years ago with George W. Bush, when we were told there were weapons of mass destruction. This war is illegal. It should have never happened. But all of a sudden, when Republicans say, hey, let's go to war, all of a sudden we can print money. Have you guys received $5,000 Doge checks? I haven't. Have you guys received tariff checks? I haven't. None of this stuff would have been happening if Kamala Harris was president of the United States. Again, not my first, second, or third pick. I agree, Dennis. In a perfect world, I wish Joe Biden stepped down sooner. Yes, I do. But the bottom line is, even MAGA Republicans right now many of them are upset with where this country is going right now. They're upset with Donald Trump's lack of leadership. And even people like Alex Jones, you've actually lost the Tucker Carlsons and the Alex Joneses and the Marjorie Taylor Greens and others that want to invoke the 25th Amendment. I can't imagine that any Democrats right now, a year and a half into Kamala's presidency, would have been calling for the 25th Amendment. This man is losing his mind. We're in another illegal war, printing money, because apparently we have all the money right now, and our economy is in the shitter, for lack of a better term. So there's no doubt in my mind, as I land my plane here, that if Kamala had won, we wouldn't have been in a war in Iran. We wouldn't have lost these soldiers. We certainly wouldn't have bombed and killed 175 school children. Okay, the economy would have been headed in the correct direction as it was when Joe Biden left office. To me, it's clear as day, and I'll leave it at that.
All right, Brian, I appreciate that. It seems like your laptop is still connected as far as the mic goes. It was kind of it was clipping out. I had to turn it all the way down on OBS on my side.
You know what? That's completely my fault. Hold on a second. I got it. Hold on a second here. I'm into the earbuds, which I don't want. Let's see. There we go. There we go. Sorry about that.
That's so much clearer.
So sorry. That was my bad, guys. I had the earbuds that were the microphones as well, which we don't want. So that sounds better?
Yeah, that sounds 10 times better. Thank you so much.
Sorry about that. Man, what a great monologue, and the audio didn't sound good. I'm so angry.
It was just sounded like you were yelling, which that seems on brand.
I do that a lot. That's on brand. Yeah.
Yeah. So okay, we're going to get into the 60-minute open dialogue. Dennis, could you check your mic one more time?
Check. Mic check. 1, 2. Can you hear me?
Messing with the audio there during that. Okay. Yes, we can hear you.
Great. Hello.
You could definitely maybe turn up just a slight bit.
Turn up?
Just a little bit.
Okay.
And
there
then,
we go. Is that good?
Yeah. Go ahead whenever you're ready. I'm gonna start the clock now. And if you guys start kind of talking over each other too much, we're gonna go ahead and stop it and cut it into 60-minute or 60-second back and forth, or 2 minutes, depending on what you guys want to do. Appreciate everybody in the chat for letting me know what's going on, and then get your super chats in for the Q&A and your tickets to DebateCon 8. All righty, go ahead, Dennis.
Well, I think it's obvious that the country would have been in a far worse position if Kamala Harris had actually been elected president. As a candidate, she was just genuinely awful. She spent more money than anybody else in the history of a presidential campaign, over $1 billion. She spent an exorbitant amount of money building a studio for herself so she could be on the Call Her Daddy podcast, which ultimately just floundered. She couldn't even come to terms with having an unscripted interview with Joe Rogan. That's how terrified she is of going off of the regular talking points. You mentioned tariffs. It's interesting because Kamala Harris isn't necessarily against tariffs. She's against the tariffs in the sense of imposing our commercial negotiations on top of for better commercial negotiations. She's actually for tariffs when it comes to electric EV mandates, when it comes to these sorts of woke environmental policies that have crippled my state of California, that you can't even change your garage door without having to get 9 inspections on it. That's what Kamala Harris, that's what her vision for the whole country is. So yeah, it's funny you bring up all these points. You just had a whole bunch of word vomit for about 5 minutes where you just...
Are we not at war? Are we not at war?
We are at war,
Iran?
and I very much
vomit?
disavow the war. I don't think it's a good idea. I have called Trump out from the beginning. I'm part of that coalition within the Republican Party that's been vocally against it.
Can I ask you, Dennis, who was the guy who said he was going to be a war-free peace president and there was going to be no types of regime change? I'm sorry, who was the guy who said that?
Trust me, I'm equally critical of Trump, and this is the difference.
I don't think you are.
This is the difference. This is the difference between the Republican Party and the Democrat Party. We can actually be critical of our leaders. You guys demonstrated during this last election that whoever you put up, whoever you anoint as leader of your party, whether through a Democratic primary or not, whether it's somebody appointed by an elite, you guys all get behind that person and you create this echo chamber where no criticism is allowed. I am critical.
Okay, so you don't.
So is Thomas Massey. So is Marjorie Taylor Greene. So are many other people in our coalition.
Well, first of all, Marjorie Taylor Greene has been critical because Donald Trump didn't endorse her. We're talking about 1 or 2% of elected officials that are Republicans, who, by the way, have an opportunity to stop this war, but they don't have the backbone to do it. I've been very critical of the Democrat Party. I was very critical of Joe Biden. He should have stepped down sooner. If you want to talk about word vomit, you just talked about some podcast that Kamala was in that she spent a lot of money for.
So wait, you don't think that level of spending and mismanagement of donor money is representative of bad governance, of how awful she would be with money and governance?
Sure. But I'm not going to talk about.
So you agree to that?
What I'm going to hold on. I'm not going to talk about some podcast. I'm going to talk about the fact that when Donald Trump was president, he got us $8.2 trillion in debt. But you'll equally go after both sides. But you want to talk about some stupid.
Well, let's talk about how inflation went out of control when Kamala Harris was vice president, or when you said she wasn't the border czar, but she was actually appointed. She had a special appointment from the president, from President Biden, to take care of the border, and about 20 million people entered the country during that period.
Dennis.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Could you turn your mic up just a little bit?
A tad? Okay. Can you hear me now?
I'm happy to talk about what Dennis just said, and I'll start by saying this. Joe Biden didn't ask, or it wasn't his choice to get us into a global pandemic. He took that over. He also didn't ask Vladimir Putin to invade Ukraine. But you see, when Joe Biden is president of the United States, you guys forget about cause. Hold on. You guys forget about cause and effect. Just give me another 30 seconds here. Donald Trump decided to go to war in Iran, a very unpopular.
He didn't decide. That's number one. That's not even look. The most charitable take on this, the most charitable person who's seen everything play out wouldn't agree with you that he decided. Even Marco Rubio, Tom Cotton, Speaker Johnson all said it was a preemptive strike because Israel was going to attack Iran, and we preemptively struck so that we protected American interests in the area.
Dennis,
Guess who didn't do that when Russia invaded Ukraine? Guess who didn't do that?
First Biden. Of all, hold on.
Biden didn't do that because he's weak. Okay? Same thing with Kamala. She wouldn't have done it. You know what her foreign policy is? You know what? You remember that interview where she's asked, "Oh, what would you do in this?" She's like, "Just don't. That's her foreign policy." She's like she's some middle school teacher.
Again, that's not true. So basically what you're saying, with no evidence, Marco Rubio, Pete Hegseth, nobody in the Trump administration has presented any evidence that Iran was an imminent threat to the United States of America. None. Zero.
Oh, I agree on that. I agree. Not only do I agree on that, but I also don't like the hypocritical stance of claiming that the bunker buster bombs had taken care of the job, and all of a sudden we have to go back in to finish out the job. I mean, there's hypocrisy there. We don't have to.
You're making my argument for me. Then
no, I'm not making your argument for you. I'm not being partisan, and I'm recognizing the truth. of the situation. See, this is the problem with Democrats and people. This is why you are sitting here and disingenuously arguing in favor of one of the worst leaders in the history of this country, Kamala Harris, because you guys are so partisan. You'll say, no, I take criticism. And then all of a sudden you just fall in line and you're defending this person that the plurality of the country, she lost every swing state. Do you understand how you're arguing a losing battle?
Dennis,
nobody thought she was good.
Yeah.
Dennis.
So Dennis, let me just give me a minute here. First of all, Dennis doesn't know much about me, and that's okay. I'll fill him in on something. Dennis, I'm not even a Democrat. I lean to the left on social issues. I did not vote for Barack Obama. I did not vote for Hillary Clinton. So it's not you guys. You got to stop saying that. I do lean to the left on social issues. Let me be very clear.
What are you registered as?
I'm a registered independent. I would have voted for a ham sandwich under Donald Trump rather than Donald Trump. Do you want to know
here's
why?
a fun fact.
I'll tell you why.
Here's a fun fact that'll add to your thing. I'm running for office in California as a Republican, but I rejected the endorsement of my party, but I have received an endorsement from the American Independent Party. So
okay, good.
Go ahead, let Brian finish.
So first of all, the reason why I'm saying Kamala would have been a better president, I never said Kamala was perfect or she would have been great. But here's something I will tell you. Kamala Harris is not a liable sexual abuser. She's not a 34-count felon. She's not involved in a billions and billions of dollar crypto scheme.
No, she's even worse. She's the kind of person that will arrest a mother who's taking care of a child for having cancer. Okay? That's the kind of politics for truancy.
Dennis,
you'll get a chance to respond, buddy.
Yeah. Dennis, if you really want to compare the moral equivalency of Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, who, by the way, is in the Epstein files more times than Jesus' name is in the Bible.
Okay, we can debate that. That's a complete straw man.
Okay, you voted for a guy who is a liable sexual abuser. You voted for a guy whose own ex-wife said that he raped her. You voted for a guy who is a scam artist, whether it's Trump University. I can go down the list of the discrimination lawsuits that he had to pay out over time.
And that says how bad Kamala Harris is. That's not just me. By the way, not just me. 71 million Americans voted. 72 million Americans voted for him. Okay? The majority of Americans, every swing state. That's how bad Kamala Harris was. That's how awful she was.
All right, Brian, I think you're muted.
Sorry about that. It also exposes how ignorant and ill-informed so many people in this country are. And
so
by
you're
the way,
saying half the country is ignorant? Really? Why would you ever say that?
Let me finish.
That's actually disgusting.
Dennis,
that's disgusting that you would call half the country ignorant.
Dennis,
let's try to go back and forth.
Okay, I'm sorry. I apologize. Let's go.
Let me finish.
Yeah.
First of all, half the country didn't vote for Donald Trump. For the people that voted,
more than half the country, yes.
Dude, you got to let me talk for more than 10 seconds.
Go ahead.
It's like
try not to interrupt, or we'll have to go into the 2 minutes time.
I got you.
Both of you guys.
I don't think we have to do this. I've done plenty of debates like this. I don't think we need to do that. You got to let me finish.
I'll let you finish. Go ahead.
Thank you. 49% of the people who voted for Donald Trump. Okay. And if we're going to go to half the country right now, he's in the low 30s and a lot of people regret their vote. Okay. So don't give me the nonsense that, if there's one thing that Donald Trump exposed, it's how many stupid people there are in this country. And we wouldn't be in this war right now if so many people didn't vote. Now, a lot of people didn't vote for Kamala because she was a woman. I think a lot of people were not ready for that, unfortunately, and it's very, very sad. But the fact of the matter is, if it's between Trump and Kamala's not on the Epstein files thousands of times. Kamala doesn't have 25 people that have accused her of rape or sexual assault. She's not a liable sexual abuser. Last I checked, she hasn't made billions and billions of dollars in a swindling crypto scandal. So if you want to compare the moral equivalency between Kamala Harris, who, by the way, is a pretty good mother and a pretty good wife and a decent human being. If you want to talk about policy, I'm happy to go into that with you. But please don't try to conflate the morals, who Donald Trump, who said, I don't respect John McCain because he was captured, who dodged the military multiple times. You're going to lose that argument, dude. You're going to lose that argument.
Well, I think it's ironic that you bring up the Epstein files, considering that Democrats had the ability to release it and refuse to do it. And they had to come up to the guy who's apparently on it as many times as you say he is to do it. By the way, it's a complete straw man to actually even mention it like that. I thought you would have learned from trying to say this to Kai. Kai Schwemmer completely owned you on that one. He demonstrated the length of first off, the length of the Bible versus the 3 million pages of Epstein files. Next, the majority of the mentions of Trump, it's mostly Epstein trying to figure out how to take Trump down. Epstein hated Trump, and it's been well documented. Now, obviously, I'm not sitting here trying to litigate every single thing Trump has done. He's a morally flawed person. But that's not why myself and the vast majority of Americans in every swing state voted for Trump. It's because the entire country recognized that we needed true leadership, and Kamala Harris just wasn't the person to do it. And obviously, there's an argument to be made about when he came into office versus where he is at now. I obviously, there are a lot of decisions of his, especially as of late, especially getting involved in the Iran war, that I personally do not agree with. Even the rollout of the Epstein files, I thought that was a disaster. Pam Bondi completely flubbed that one. So
why did she do that? Why do you think she flubbed it? Who was she protecting,
we
Dennis?
can sit here and speculate all day. It's flubbed. I'm grateful she's been fired. I don't know, dude. I don't know why she flubbed it.
You don't know? Let me ask you a question. By the way, you mentioned Epstein. Let's talk about that. So I don't know.
Wait, no. Answer your own question. Why did she flub it? Because you asked a question, you didn't answer it. You pivoted to something else.
Sure.
You want to speculate? Go ahead and speculate.
Sure. It's not speculation. When Kash Patel was asked under oath 8 times, did you tell Pam Bondi that Donald Trump is in the Epstein files? 8 times he refused to answer the question. Do you want to know why? Because they all knew he was all over the Epstein files. It's why millions of files have still not been released. It's why so many files have been redacted that we know have Donald Trump's name in it. And going back to Ghislaine Maxwell.
And that's absolutely disgraceful. It really is.
Thank you. I'm glad we agree on that. Let's talk about
Dennis, real quick. I keep seeing people in the chat saying you're not loud enough.
You need me to go up more?
Yeah. I don't know why.
I'm almost maxed out here, so you guys let me know if you need me to go up more.
It keeps imbalancing. I'm not sure.
It's George Soros. They're silencing you. It's George Soros.
They're silencing me. Oh, no.
So Ghislaine Maxwell, let's talk about her for a moment because you mentioned the Joe Biden administration. Are you aware that Maxwell was not only under investigation during the Biden administration, but those files were sealed up during the trial and after the trial when, in fact, she was appealing? Now, listen, if there's any president that could have released the files and didn't, I think that's wrong. But I can tell you one thing. Somebody who's not in those files, since we're talking about Kamala Harris, she's not in the Epstein files, and she wasn't partying with Jeffrey Epstein, and she wasn't Jeffrey Epstein's best friend. That's the bottom line here. So here's what we have. We have a war that we both agree on shouldn't be happening, and I'm glad we agree on that. We have a situation where so many MAGA supporters were almost excited, maybe there's a better word to describe it, of these binders and these morons that were outside in D.C. with these binders. Phase 1, phase 2 never came. We were told that Donald Trump only hires the best people. Kristi Noem was an absolute disaster.
I agree on. Look, here's the thing. We can agree on a lot of these things. I think that you'll find that there are a lot of people in the MAGA movement that are very unhappy with the direction that Trump is taking. Kristi Noem was an absolute disaster. Look, the fact that she spent $1 million on a single photo shoot, and it was mostly advertisements. I mean, I was just at the airport the other day flying back from Dallas, and I saw the ads. It's almost like a joke. Like, look, Republicans are on the same side as you on this. We want an effective country. We want an effective executive. And look, at the same time, I do hope the Democrats take some level of accountability for their sanctuary laws, which is something that Kamala Harris supported, which is, you allow 20-something million people into the country in just a couple of years, and then all of a sudden you do everything you can to obstruct the, illegal immigration enforcement inside the country. You go as far as Tim Walz and Jacob Frey, Mayor Frey out in Minnesota, and you're refusing to cooperate with the federal government, which is ultimately what the goal of sanctuary laws are. And that's something that Kamala Harris supported. So if she had actually been president, we would have seen it go from 20 million illegal aliens over just a few years to possibly even more. Who knows how many would have entered the country by now? And our social safety net, everything about the country would have just completely collapsed.
I'm happy to talk to you about that. First of all, if Kamala Harris was president, Renee Good and Alex Preddy would still be alive today. That's number one. Number two, per capita in this country, you have the better chance of being the victim of a crime from an American citizen than you do an undocumented immigrant. Number three,
Per capita,
people's
no, that's false.
no, that's not false. You could look that up.
It's false.
Third,
Per
and
capita,
Fourth
it's not
Amendment,
true.
First, third, and Fourth Amendment rights being taken away from American citizens. It's why Bovino just retired. It's why they had to go in there and call off the troops, for lack of a better term. People were being barged into their homes without a warrant. It has been seen on video. So this is the immigration issue is an issue that we've had in this country for a very, very long time. But I'll tell you one thing.
And it's been exacerbated by people like Kamala.
Okay, well, I would also bring up George W. Bush, and I go back to the vice presidency again because you keep failing to understand the basics of this, which is the vice president is not a policymaker. If you want to blame Joe Biden,
I understand. So this is what you're ignoring. Yes, the vice president is not a policymaker. You know, they're the tie-breaking vote on the Senate. But they can have special appointments from the president, which is something you're refusing to acknowledge. This is on the record. She received a special appointment by President Biden to oversee the border. We had an insanely out of control border crisis. I'm sure you remember this when Greg Abbott tried to shut down the Texas border and Joe Biden sent in the trucks to open up the border again. Okay. He had Kamala Harris as one of the people on a special appointment taking care of the border. So to ignore that is to almost, it makes your point null. So
I disagree with you. First of all, I'll mention again, Mayorkas was the border czar number one. Number two, I've criticized.
He was the head of DHS.
I don't think they did a good job at immigration enforcement and the border. But I would also say Donald Trump has done just as bad a job at enforcing it. You have ICE agents who have 47 days of training. What happened in Minneapolis is a travesty. You have a bunch of people that are unqualified, that are not prepared for the job, and it's why Bovino has just retired. He retired as a disgrace. So we can talk about ICE and we can talk about the lack of or the job that they have done. And then after Renee Good is shot and, in my opinion, murdered, there's no full-on investigation. And Jonathan Ross is now a millionaire because a bunch of right-wing MAGA buffoons sent him a bunch of money with no full investigation into what happened. And the Alex Preddy shooting, absolutely unjustified as well. Listen, I want, just like most people in this country want, if you're a violent criminal or even a felon and you're undocumented, I believe you should be deported. But there are people in this country 10, 20, 30, 40 years that have families here, and there has to be an easier pathway to citizenship. There's one party that makes it more difficult, and that's the Republican Party. People 10, 15 years to become legalized citizens. Guess what? That needs to change. And I always hear from Republicans, we want you coming in this country. We just want you to come in the right way. Okay, then why don't you make it a little bit easier? I want everybody to be vetted. I have no problem with that. But it shouldn't take 10 or 15 years for people to become naturalized citizens. Oh, yeah, by the way, I would assume, Dennis, you care about our Constitution. Then why don't you call out the Trump administration for breaking the law and deporting people that are from Mexico, that are filing the correct paperwork, that are seeking asylum? And the Trump administration, they're literally deporting those people. It's against the law.
Here's the thing. I think it's, you're talking about the Republican Party you're ignoring the history of this country. I mean, I don't agree with this, but Ronald Reagan did mass amnesty. Millions of people were immediately, fast forwarded. So you're just being either completely obtuse or just ignoring history.
I'm talking about right now.
Let me just finish. Let me finish my point. The best Democrats could ever do was DACA, which was just a temporary Band-Aid, which still hasn't really solved the situation for the folks that are in that gray zone area. So, I mean, it's just historically, your point is just ignorant. Outside of that, I think it's important to look at something. You were talking about policy. Let's talk about policy that Kamala Harris supported. You still haven't answered for this. Part of the reason why Renee Good, why Alex Preddy are no longer with us, why we saw immigration enforcement play out in the streets in the manner in which it did is because of sanctuary policies. Because sanctuary policies allow for a breakdown. Is this news to you? Sanctuary policies allow. So let me explain something to you since this is news to you. Before sanctuary policies, and this is a discussion that played out at length here in California before it became statewide policy. Before sanctuary policies, when somebody was arrested, the police department that was arresting them would look at their immigration status and would call ICE in case there was some question about their immigration status, and ICE would make a determination whether or not to deport that person. All of this happened behind the scenes inside a jail without playing out on the streets. In fact, one of the main concerns when this law was passed here in California many years ago was that this would break down that cooperation and would cause immigration enforcement interior removals to play out on the street as they're playing out now and have played out over the past year.
So I disagree.
So
Dennis,
Kamala Harris supports sanctuary policies. You still haven't answered for that.
So-
that breaks down the cooperation
hold on
between
a
the
second.
state, the county, and the federal government. I think it's time for you to take accountability for that.
Yeah, go ahead. Let him respond,
Yeah,
please.
you just said something that is completely not factually accurate. The reason why Renee Good was shot and killed had nothing to do with sanctuary policies and had everything to do with officers who are not properly trained to be
That's
in
a
those
straw man.
situations.
Absolute
Hold on.
straw
No, it's
man.
not a straw man. It
is a straw man because it's not what I'm
No, it's not.
arguing.
Let me
I'm
finish.
saying if the policy
Okay,
wasn't in
all right.
place, it wouldn't be
Dennis,
playing out in
hold
the
on,
streets.
hold on.
Let him finish his
You're-
point, and then you can respond to it.
You're the one who just said, quote, the reason why Preddy and Good were killed is because of sanctuary policies. The reason why Alex Preddy was killed is because you had a bunch of goons wearing masks that were 1,500 miles, Border Patrol agents, by the way, that were 1,500 miles from the border, acting like thugs.
Interior removals are a thing.
And then you had
Straw man.
Christie. Again, you keep saying straw man, but you don't want to actually address why they were killed. And then you have a bunch
The
of
policy.
goons wearing.
I'm talking
you
about
have
the
a bu-
policy. You're refusing to
Okay, well,
acknowledge
then you
the
should-
effect the
then
policy
you
had.
should not. Then you should not have brought up both of their names. The reason why they were killed is because you
What are
have
you
a bunch
talking
of
about? The
goons wearing-
policy.
Yeah.
If the policy,
Okay, no,
if
that-
sanctuary policies weren't in place, then this sort of interior removal wouldn't be playing out in the streets. Thus, you don't have activists blocking ICE. Thus, you don't have these violent situations play out.
Okay, so first of all, Alex Preddy was not blocking ICE. That's also not factually.
No, in fact, he was
accurate.
obstructing justice. He was standing
No,
between. He
absolutely
pushed.
not.
He
No.
he was standing between ICE agents and a woman. Then he
not true.
resisted arrest.
Okay, so first of all, that is 100% factually inaccurate.
I mean,
for
we can play the
everybody
video
that
and watch
watched
it.
the
We can
video.
watch it.
Yeah.
You wanna
okay,
watch it?
First of all, what
Play
he
the
did
video.
was he was helping a
Play the
woman
video.
get up, and the ICE officers approached him. And when you have 4 or 5 officers immediately pepper spray him at close length, which you're not trained to do, and then push him to the ground and start kicking and punching him, I don't really know what you mean by resisting arrest. Alex Preddy didn't deserve to be shot in the street. By the way,
I
Alex
agree. He
Preddy
did not deserve to be
legally-
shot. I agree with that.
Okay, well, guess what? Stephen Miller called him an assassin. Christy Noam called him a domestic terrorist. They did the same thing with Renee Good. It is despicable and it is disgusting. By the way, both of these people, no criminal record. At worst case scenario, maybe you could have cited Renee Good for a misdemeanor. This is by far brutality and, in my personal opinion, murder. Okay? Murder. Now, I would ask you a question, and I'm going to go back to January 6th now to see if you're consistent. Would you say that January 6th happens if Donald Trump doesn't lie about the 2020 election?
In what sense it happened? What
Does it-
specifically? Your question
if-
is so
real
broad
quick,
and
Dennis,
vague.
Dennis,
So
do you have a suppressor on your microphone?
you're talking to me?
Yeah, is in your audio settings, do you have a suppressor on? I think that might be why I have no control on my end.
Let me see. You want me to turn it up? I don't know if I have.
Or turn
Yes.
it down so that more of your audio comes through.
Turn my audio down?
No, your audio could be a little higher, is what I consistently
Oh.
keep reading in the
Here, I
chat.
can just turn it up manually in here. Is
Oh,
that better?
Sounds way better. Yeah, that sounds way better.
Okay,
Thank you.
cool.
Okay, good.
All right.
So
Sorry
my
about that.
question to that's okay. So my question to Dennis, and I'll explain why I'm asking in a moment, because we're talking about Kamala and Trump, who you obviously voted for 3 times, Dennis. Does
I didn't.
January
So
6th,
hold on.
you didn't?
I was a registered independent before that too, so I was on the same boat as you. Okay, I actually
you weren't.
first election around, even though and I'm clarifying this because you just made an assumption. First election around, I liked Trump. I didn't like his tone. I actually ended up voting third party at that point.
Okay.
In 2020. I couldn't vote for either one. I was pissed off with Trump over the COVID stuff, and Joe Biden just
Okay.
looked like a corpse. So I only voted for Trump in the last time around.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. I did make an assertion, but hey, you assumed I'm a Democrat, so we're even now. Thank you
Hey,
for
yeah,
clearing
we're
that
even.
up. Fair enough. Fair enough. Okay. Well, I'm actually glad to hear that. So after the January 6th insurrection, you still voted for Trump. So my question to you is very simple. If Trump doesn't lie about the 2020 election, does January 6th happen? Yes or no?
Well, first off, you got to tell me how he lied. What lie specifically was said?
Did Joe Biden win a free and fair election in 2020?
No, I believe that there are several issues that played out with the 2020 election, and there has been extensive investigation, specifically in Arizona.
Really?
What's that?
So hold on. I didn't ask you if there were issues. There's going to be issues in
I
every
mean,
election. I understand.
you're
that.
asking. You said a free and fair election. To me, if there are issues in an election, it's not a fair election.
Got you. So was there any evidence of widespread voter fraud that anybody has found that could have overturned the outcome of the 2000?
There are definitely questions with the voting machines, yes, and there are definitely questions with other things.
I didn't ask you if there were questions. Let me repeat my question. Is there any proven evidence of widespread voter fraud that could have changed the outcome of the 2000?
Some of this stuff is still playing out in court. It takes years for this kind of stuff to play out. Huh?
What's playing out in court?
The investigation in Arizona. I know for a fact that just in California alone, we're investigating, and I'm actually part of a lawsuit with the Libertarian Party that we're actually suing the state over our mail-in ballot system because of the mass amount of fraud that plays out. This is actually actively playing out beyond 2020. 2020 just raised a lot of questions for a lot of people.
Dennis, if Trump won Arizona, does he win the election?
I don't remember specifically how the delegates played out, but
the answer is no. So let me ask the same question again. Even if he wins Arizona, which, by the way, has not been proven in a court of law, is there evidence right now of widespread voter fraud that could have changed the outcome of the election? It's a very simple question that you're not answering.
Well, I just explained it to you.
No, I'm giving you Arizona, by the way.
You're conceding Arizona. Okay. Well, there is enough evidence of voter fraud in elections in general, okay, for there to be questions about every election.
Dennis,
From 2020 is just one example. It was just the one at scale that we saw it play out at a huge scale. I mean, like I said, there are lawsuits right now in California over mail-in ballots. There was just a case a few months ago of a woman who registered her golden retriever, and her golden retriever voted twice.
Yes. Yeah, right. Okay, so Dennis, the earth is not flat, and there's no evidence of widespread voter fraud that the election was stolen. And the reason why, which I'm amazed that you can't admit, even if Donald Trump won Arizona, he still loses the election. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because Donald Trump had 61 chances in a courtroom.
So you actually believe that Joe Biden was more popular than Barack Obama?
Okay.
That he got more votes than Barack Obama?
So first of all, it's not what I believe. It's facts versus fiction.
Okay. So here's the thing. That's such a false assertion. It's facts versus fiction. So you actually believe that it is So here's the thing. You're advocating for a level of corruption in our electoral system, and you're saying that just because a fact hasn't been properly questioned yet or gone through an investigative process yet, that all of a sudden that means that it's 100% true that there was no fraud whatsoever in 2020, that there's no reason to question the voting machines.
We've got about 25 minutes left here in the open dialogue, so I just want to let you guys know if there's too much more interruptions, we'll go back to, or we'll just go to a timed back and forth.
Yep. So fair enough. So Dennis just said something that I never said. I never said there wasn't any fraud.
Oh, so you admit
it. And the question that I keep asking, which you haven't answered, which the answer is no. There has been no evidence to this day of widespread voter fraud. Now, 0-61 Donald Trump was in the courtrooms. Those judges, some of them Trump appointed, there was no merit, meaning he had the opportunity to present evidence, which he was unable to do. And Donald Trump goes down in history, by the way, Dennis, as the only president to not concede an election. Hillary Clinton conceded, Kamala Harris conceded. And if Donald Trump had conceded the election, which goes to why I brought this up at the beginning of this conversation, if he had conceded, January 6th does not happen. They wouldn't be chanting, "Hang Mike Pence." 140 officers wouldn't have been injured. And by the way, do you think you're a hostage or a patriot if you beat cops on January 6th? Surely, Dennis, you can't agree with the president's verbiage that they were all hostage and patriots, right?
Well, I'm sure that if you have this much of a problem with January 6th, you also condemn BLM.
I'm happy to talk
The
about that.
BLM riots, you condemn the
So can you
billions of
please-
dollars of damage,
hold on, Dennis.
all the
Dennis,
destruction. You condemn
Dennis,
all of that?
Dennis, I'll answer your question, but can you please answer mine first before you pivot? If you beat cops on January 6th, are you a hostage and a patriot?
Who beat the cops? Who
that-
specifically?
Is that a serious statement? You're mean to tell me, Dennis, you're running
No, it's
for
not a
office.
serious statement. I asked you a question. You don't have to heighten the language right now. I'm asking you a question. I want to know
heightening the
specific
language.
cases of who beat who.
I'm
And
heightening
what,
the
how the
language.
situation played out. I want thorough explanations of court records of how it played out,
I'm gonna give it to
video,
you.
all that stuff. Because
I'm
you're
gonna give
making
it to
some
you.
crazy allegations.
it to you.
You're cherry
I'm gonna
picking and you're
answer you.
hyper focusing
I'm
on
gonna answer you.
specific moments.
I'm gonna
Okay, when
answer you.
there's plenty of questions, including Chip
answering
Roy,
you.
who
right,
actually
Dennis,
even
let's-
brought
let's
up
let him
that there were
respond.
200 embedded
I'm trying to answer-
FBI
I'm trying to
agents
answer-
that
I'm
were
trying to
there
answer.
that were there
Dennis,
co-
you're trying
that
to
may
answer,
have
buddy.
caused
Okay.
the situation
the
to get out of
problem.
control.
This is my big issue with people like Dennis, with all due respect.
Whoa,
all
whoa!
saw
What do you mean,
videos
people
of-
like me?
Yeah, and I'm going to explain why if you will allow me to talk.
Go ahead. I'm
we
half
all
the
saw the
country,
video.
buddy. If you hate half the country, you're gonna have to live with that.
You are definitely not
Come
half
on,
the
Dennis.
country. If you're,
We
if you're half
can't let him respond. We're going to go to time.
if you're half the country, boy, are we in a lot of trouble. So first of all, everybody saw the video and the videos of officers being beaten on January 6th. Of the 1,500 people that were arrested, half of them were arrested and convicted of violent crimes. There were 140.
The majority of them weren't
officers-
even given due process. So what
Dennis,
you're saying is absolutely
dude,
false.
Dude,
I
dude,
personally
you
know
gotta-
January
you gotta-
6
dude,
people,
I know-
January
of course
6
you
people
do.
who were
I'm sure
held
you do,
in
Dennis. Let me
solitary
finish.
confinement with zero due process.
Dennis, I'm not saying that every single person was treated fairly.
No, you literally
not-
just made that assertion.
Dennis, you're not listening because you keep talking over me. Let me finish. Of the 1,500 people that were arrested and convicted, half of those people were convicted for violent crime. Of those half, 700 people, a few hundred of those people had a chance to defend themselves in a court of law, and some of those people were convicted and sentenced for battery and beating officers. Brian Sitnick died the next day. There were literally 140 officers that were injured.
There was
and
no
at the
direct
hospital.
correlation
Are you
between
aware-
Brian Sicknick dying and what happened on January 6th. It's purely speculative.
Okay, so no, it's not, and I'll tell you why. The coroner, who actually did an autopsy on Brian Sitnick, did an interview the next week with a local DC newspaper, and you're obviously unaware of what he said. You could look this up if you don't believe me. He said that the state of the body that Brian Sitnick was in January 6th had something to do with it. That's the guy who actually did the
Something to
autopsy.
do with it. Oh, couldn't have placed it
Yeah.
more broadly than that.
Okay, got you. So I'm sure it had nothing to do. There were 140 officers.
Hey, the
that
only
were
person
injured
who
that
actually
day.
died that day was Ashley Babbitt, who got shot. And then there was
That's
somebody
actually-
else who got taken
that's
out on a
actually not
stretcher,
true.
another January 6th person who died
actually-
outside.
that's
So
actually-
outside the Capitol. So
actually-
both, again,
that's
you
actually-
never mentioned those cases. I wonder why.
so-
Do you
so-
you care so
so
much
I-
about Alex
Actually, I talk about
Preddy
it all the
and
time.
and
Yeah,
Renee
talk about it.
Good, but you don't mention
Alex
Ashley
Preddy,
Babbitt.
sure,
Why is
I'll
that?
answer that.
Why
I'll
do you have a
answer
double
that.
standard?
I'll give you. It's not a double standard.
It is a double standard.
I'm going to give you a direct answer. The reason why, Alex Preddy and Renee Good were not committing felonies. Okay, at the time. They were
Obstruction of
murdered.
justice isn't a
Ashley-
felony now, huh?
That has not been. That has not.
Oh,
been
okay. That has not. Okay,
And the
okay.
Renee Good-
So I
okay,
see
hold
you
on,
just
hold on, let
redefine
me
legal
finish.
terms whenever they
Let me finish.
apply,
Let
whenever
me
they,
finish.
whenever it's convenient for you.
No, I'm actually explaining something called a fact. If you'll let me finish and let me talk for 10 seconds.
Okay.
So-
Finish, Brian.
Ashley-
I'll let you talk.
Ashley-
Go monologue.
That's very nice of you. Thank you, sir. Ashley Babbitt, that whole case was investigated. She was committing a felony. There was a gun that was pointed at her. She had 5 to 10 seconds. The officer, and by the way, that was investigated, fully investigated, unlike Renee Good shooting, which there has been no full investigation. They haven't done ballistics. They haven't interviewed witnesses. They've done nothing because Kash Patel has ordered them not to. So don't give me this bullshit and trying to conflate the two. Ashley Babbitt's family received $5 million. It's very sad what happened to her. She's someone who served this country and she was brainwashed, but she was committing a felony that day and she did it to herself. and her
Okay,
family
Brian,
doesn't deserve $1.
let's let Dennis respond to that claim specifically if he'd like to.
I'd like to bring it back to Kamala Harris because I think it's.
Of course.
Well, I mean, we can keep talking about Ashley Babbitt, but we're here to debate Kamala Harris actually being a good candidate. If you want to keep talking about Ashley Babbitt, we can do that. But I'm just curious. So, considering the state of the world right now, how would you see Kamala Harris doing a better job than Trump?
Yeah. So I thought I already answered that in my monologue, but it's a good question, Dennis, and I'm glad to answer it again. We would not be in an ill-advised and, in my opinion, illegal war right now. Those 13 brave men and women in uniform would not be buried right now if Kamala Harris was president of the United States. Number two, inflation was headed in the right direction. Unemployment rate was at 4.1% when Joe
Brian,
Biden left
let's try to
office.
take this one point at a time there. What your first point
Okay.
again, and then
Well,
Dennis
we wouldn't be
respond to that.
okay. Fair enough. We would not be in an ill-advised war spending $2 billion a day. Go ahead, Dennis.
We'd
Tell
be,
me I'm wrong.
in fact, we would be in a much deeper conflict than that. Because if you look at it, Kamala Harris would have 100% supported, taken a similar stance, but from a weaker position as Trump. Because if you'll remember, when Israel first started attacking Palestine as a response to October 7th, Kamala Harris was in full support of that. And not only that, she was in 2024, she was in full support of Israel retaliating against Iran when Iran did a missile strike against Israel. So she was very much in the pocket of Israel and would have acted in the exact same way. But as we all know, trepidatiously would have responded instead of doing it with a force, which is unfortunately what you need in these kinds of situations when you're dealing with people who are very aggressive. Yeah. As we've seen, Iran's leadership is nothing to shy, away from. These guys are very tough, to be honest with you. And I think that honestly, look, my take on the whole thing is we shouldn't have gotten involved in it. If Kamala Harris were here, we would have gotten involved regardless. And it would have ended up much, much unbelievably worse because we would have likely by now, considering the amount of the millions of people that she has allowed into the country illegally without all the interior removals that happened in the last year and a half, we would have ended up very likely with an attack in the homeland, some sort of terrorist attack, some sort of dirty bomb. The amount of people that were removed from the country, the 1.3 million people that were removed from the country in the last year likely saved us from actually getting retaliated against when this happened. And if you'll remember, the day after we did the initial strikes on Iran,
we'll hit point 2, and then you can respond to
okay,
that.
well, let me just finish. The day after we did the initial strike on Iran, there was a response attack in Austin. So there was a very real possibility that this could have played out in the homeland in a much, much worse way. And the only reason why it didn't happen is because we have Trump.
Yep. Let me just update Dennis on the news. I don't know if you've been watching the news today, Dennis. If you want to talk about weakness, let's talk about weakness. So Donald Trump just agreed to a 2-week ceasefire again with Iran, and he acknowledged Iran's own 10-point framework. Iran's Supreme National Security Council said today that the U.S. has effectively accepted its own core demands, including continued Iran control over the Strait of Hormuz, acceptance of uranium enrichment, lifting sanctions, and even discussions, Dennis, of compensation and U.S. troop withdrawal. CNN released this statement from Iran's Supreme National Security Council, and Donald Trump now is threatening a lawsuit against them, even though it's Iran's own statement that they put out. So for you,
there's a couple different things in there.
For you to lecture me about weakness, the guy who you voted for, you couldn't be more weak, and that's why we call him Taco Trump on a Tuesday, Dennis.
So there are a few different things I want to respond to on there. When you look at that situation, first off, I don't know if strategically you understand why it actually benefits America to weaken the Strait of Hormuz and the ability to move it out. We're one of the largest producers of energy in the world, and we actually produce enough not just for ourselves but to export. If we can start creating even more and exporting it to the world and displacing the Middle East as a primary supplier of the world of energy, especially considering the new partnerships that we're developing in Venezuela, all of a sudden we have a whole other source of income and wealth coming into our country. On top of that, I actually don't mind withdrawing troops from the Middle East. I am a non-interventionalist. I don't want to be doing the bidding of Israel and helping Israel expand their government and their land. I don't want to help Israel. I don't want to provide them weapons so they can bomb Iran. I don't want to give them weapons so they can bomb southern Lebanon and so they can bomb Gaza into nothing. Okay, so I'm actually
Dennis. For the last 15 minutes, we're gonna do 60-second responses back and forth.
Okay.
By vote of the chat here.
Cool.
Okay.
I'm listening, Chad. I'm listening.
So Donald Trump has done all those things that you said don't want to happen. That's number one. Number two, we still don't have a clear explanation from the Trump administration as to why we even went in there to begin with. First, we were told regime change. Let's talk about that 30 seconds here. So Donald Trump has been trying to make the argument that this is a more or less radical regime that's in there. You have the Ayatollah's son, and you have younger, more capable, and more radicalized people in that position now than they were when the Ayatollah was there. And then they moved to, well, it's not really about regime. We want civilians to rise up. What the hell does that mean? And then we were told that, well, there was an imminent threat. And then when they walked off that, then it was about the Marines and the ships. They can't, at least George W. Bush came up with one lie and stuck to it. The Trump administration can't even do that. And now Trump was embarrassed. He backed down. He has lived up to what Iran wanted him to do.
Right.
Go ahead.
That's your minute.
I agree with you on that end. The narrative management from the Trump administration, or even Pete Hegseth, has been absolutely awful. They haven't been able to nail down reasons. They initially said, like I mentioned, Speaker Johnson, Tom Cotton, and slipping my mind right now, and Marco Rubio mentioned that this was a preemptive strike on behalf of Israel because Israel was going to do it. It was going to put our assets in the region in danger. The narrative management has been awful. But the outcome, as somebody who's America first, who's a non-interventionalist, who actually wants to see a strong America exporting energy around the world, you know what? This is actually a pretty decent outcome. Obviously, it looks like a bunch of concessions to the Iranian regime. Well, like you mentioned, we haven't seen a full statement from the White House. We haven't seen statements as far as explaining our thoughts and our methodology around, even considering these sorts of concessions. But at the end of the day, look, I want to be out of the Middle East. I don't care about the Middle East. And I want to see an energy independent America.
Brian, go ahead.
Yeah, so a couple things. You're talking about what you want to see happen here, and the fact of the matter is right now gas prices are through the roof. We're spending $2 billion a day in this war, and our brave men and women in uniform are coming home in caskets. I also think it's a great thing that we got this pilot back, right? Anytime we can save a life and bring somebody home, that's a good thing. But Pete Hegseth, who you mentioned, or I like to call Heg Breath, he's an absolute embarrassment and an alleged woman abuser. His own mother called him that. But, Donald Trump only hires the best people, right? Pam Bondi, Kristi Noem, Pete Hegseth. Donald Trump only hires the best people. But the point that I was trying to make about this helicopter pilot, and again, I emphasize, I'm glad that he's home, is that when you have these brave men and women coming home in caskets, which is horrible, Pete Hegseth doesn't want the media covering that. They're not holding press conferences, and Donald Trump is wearing a baseball cap, and you guys seem to obsess over Joe Biden looking at his watch for half a second, and then Fox News uses different footage to talk about that. The fact of the matter is that there are brave men and women. Their lives are being put at risk. I have the most respect for them, and we have a guy who doesn't care about them. He doesn't care.
Your minute. Some people in the chat are saying if you guys want, you can do 2 minutes. They'd probably enjoy that a little more. What do you guys think?
Whatever you guys want.
That's about a minute and 48 seconds longer than Donald Trump lasted with Stormy Daniels. I'm sorry. I had to throw that.
Why did you have to do?
Yeah, okay. We'll do 2 minutes.
All right.
It should be about five back and forth.
You.
We're gonna get into the Q&A. So, guys, get your super chats in for the Q&A. Please be respectful. Ask sincere questions. Don't just insult the debaters. And then go ahead, get your tickets for DebateCon 8. That's coming up in July. So it's about to sell out probably in the next week or so. Appreciate all the feedback. I'm trying to be as fair as possible. This is a neutral platform. So I'm doing.
You're doing a great job, James. Thank you for having me.
Very unneutral people in the chat, which I could agree with, is necessary to have engagement. But yeah, here we go. We're going to go into 2 minutes. We got about 10 to 12 minutes left of the open dialogue. Go ahead, Dennis. Start now.
What is What's the top? Like, I forgot what you said last, Brian.
Well, obviously, Dennis, we're talking about Iran, right? And we're talking about, and I think we probably agree a lot more than we disagree when it comes to the war in Iran and how it's affecting America, how it's affecting our economy. I'll just say this, and then you take the floor. The two people right now that has benefited the most from this war, Benjamin Netanyahu and Vladimir Putin. Financially right now, if we had to look at it, and when you say America first, yeah, I want America first.
Let's also find a way to tie it back into the prompt. It's all connected, obviously, if you think about it. But if you could, Dennis, I haven't started your time yet.
Cool.
So Brian can catch
tie it back to Kamala. Ahead. Gotcha. Well, I don't disagree with you on Benjamin Netanyahu benefiting. I think Russia is very happy that we have a weakened position in the Middle East as well. At the end of the day, again, I have to bring it back to this because it's very emblematic of Kamala Harris's foreign policy. She would have been much weaker. She would have given away the entire world. And if we ended up having any sort of military operation that she was heading as commander-in-chief, it would have been an absolute disaster. Who knows how many people? You were mentioning Americans dying. It's always unfortunate when any American dies. That's, in fact, one of my major criticisms. I think that American blood should never be, spent on any war, any conflict that's not in the interest of Americans, and it should be a decision that's made by all Americans. It shouldn't be the kind of thing that you just sign off on and you just send a bunch of people out. Obviously, we have other judicial precedent that allows the president to do that. But all that being said, I believe strongly that if Kamala Harris were president right now, we would have given up the entire Middle East, every position we've had. We would have incurred billions upon billions of dollars in damage all over the region. Our positions would be weakened. We wouldn't be strategically in a position where we can now sell oil to the whole world. We can be a friendlier partner than Iran. So I just don't understand how she could have been a better mediator in this sort of negotiation when you're dealing with people who are very hostile toward America. You need some level of, for lack of a better word, of a strong man, right? Who is going to come in and negotiate in the strongest sense. And look, when I read that tweet this morning that Trump posted, myself and many other Republicans, and I talked to a lot of people in the party today about this. What do you think about this? Is this, that tweet that he posted on Easter, that pissed me off. So, there are a lot of internal conversations happening in the Republican Party, but at the same time, we have an understanding that he has more access to information and he is negotiating from a position where he's trying to, he's sending a message, and in return, he's actually getting the concessions that actually benefit America in the long term when you think about it. So, and this isn't just coming from me.
20 seconds extra there. So I'll give it you 20 seconds extra, Brian.
Okay.
So first of all, if you want to talk about hostile towards America, let's talk about Vladimir Putin for a moment, who have already basically conceded that they are giving up intel to the Iranian government. What that means is that they're putting our own troops. You just said you care about American blood just as much as I do. They are actually giving intel to Iran. And what is Donald Trump doing about it? Nothing. They haven't talked about it. There have been no sanctions. In fact, the Trump administration has said they've had, quote, wonderful talks over the last few months. So if you want to talk about hostile towards America, maybe we could just start there. Number two, they're more hostile towards us now. How do you think those parents are feeling? Losing their young girls. We've lost 175 Iranian children. And by the way, Donald Trump lied about that as well. His initial response was it could have been Iran. To all the MAGA dopes out there that might be watching, guess what? Iran doesn't have Tomahawk missiles. America does. And by the way, they knew that they're the ones who did it, and they didn't own it or take responsibility, and they tried to lie about it. So if you want to talk about hostile towards America, I would think there are a lot of people in Iran that are probably more hostile towards America now than they were a few months ago. We have a younger regime. You have a younger regime, and I think a lot of people would argue a more radical regime. Wasn't the whole point that Donald Trump said he wanted to choose the regime? And he's saying right now this is a smarter regime and they're less radical. What the hell is he talking about? You've got the Ayatollah's son. You have younger people in that regime right now that are far more radical and probably more capable than an old man that was in there to begin with. So that is also a lie. They've been lying about this war from the beginning since day one. Now Donald Trump has caved to their demands. We don't have Hormuz, and we're still going to be at war in 2 weeks. Okay, so he agreed to a 2-week ceasefire. What have we accomplished? What has America accomplished? What have we gained from this war? We haven't gained anything from this war. Sadly, our troops are coming home in caskets. Our gas, I just paid $5.25 a gallon. And then you have Trumpers and MAGA people out there that saying somehow it's patriotic to spend more money from gas while he gives the biggest tax breaks to the top 1%. And the people that are living paycheck to paycheck are the people that are struggling. It's a joke.
All right, Dennis, we're going to turn it back to you. 2 minutes on the clock, starting when you talk.
Well, here's the thing. Like I mentioned earlier, we're going to move production back home. We're going to weaken the position of Iran and the Strait of Hormuz and the amount of influence that it has as far as exporting oil. We can easily produce more oil at home when it comes to that. I think at the end of the day, this will end up playing out better long term for America. We already moved many years ago into being completely energy independent. We moved away from our dependence on oil from the Saudis. So, this is a matter of displacing the global order. And there is an effort by the Iranians to weaken us economically by weakening the petrodollar. And this is effectively moving away from the world's dependence on the Strait of Hormuz is one of the smartest moves that you can do economically long term. When it comes to the cost of lives and everything, again, the points that you laid out, in the agreement, one of them reducing our involvement there, removing our troops from bases there. That's all going to solve that problem. I think most Americans want less involvement in the Middle East. I myself included. I grew up seeing our involvement in Afghanistan and Iraq. I want to be out of there. I see no reason to be there outside of doing Israel's bidding. So, again, I'm deeply saddened whenever any American is lost. I think it's awful. I don't think it's ever justified, especially in a scenario like this. I don't want to be doing Israel's bidding. That's one thing that I think should be discussed at length here. Why are we engaging in wars on behalf of our so-called greatest ally, and then we're looking 2 and 3 weeks later at a potential ground invasion, and they say, hey, guys, no, we're not going in with that. We're just going to keep bombing southern Lebanon into oblivion, and you guys go in there and take care of that. So, at the end of the day, obviously, the deal on paper doesn't look like it's the best deal, but if you're actually America first, and if you're actually pro-America, you understand that this is all going to work in America's benefit.
All right.
I heard the same.
I'll give you an extra 15 seconds, Brian. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I heard the same thing about the war in Iraq when we were told weapons of mass destruction. In the long run, things are going to be okay. We're still paying for that war. And I would also remind you that Donald Trump said there was peace in the Middle East about 10 months ago. And then we were told 8 months ago we obliterated their capabilities. Apparently, we obliterated their capabilities again. There was never peace in the Middle East. Israel and Hamas broke a ceasefire. He lied then. He's lying now. This isn't going to end well, just like the war in Iraq didn't end well. And every single time it seems like we have a Republican in office, we get into another ill-advised and illegal war, and we're being lied to. Americans are being lied to. Trump is continuing to lie to the American people, and we should have never been there to begin with. I am not pro-Israeli government. I'm pro-Israeli people. Benjamin Netanyahu has played Donald Trump like a fiddle. Vladimir Putin has played Donald Trump like a fiddle. This is the opposite of America first. And while we take people off of Medicare and we take the most needy people off of government assistance, we're spending $2 billion a day on this war. And pardon my French, it's a fucking joke. And it's an embarrassment that we're not taking care of our own people in America. This is the opposite of America first. And he ran on America first. And you, as well as I know, Dennis, this is the opposite of America first. And we are suffering in this country because of Donald Trump.
All right, you're going to go ahead and concede the rest of your time there?
Do I get more?
Okay, yeah. We'll do like 2 back and forths, and then we'll get into the Q&A.
Sure.
Cool. I think it's interesting that you mentioned that Republicans have been starting wars every time they're in office. When you look back at Obama, the president who's done the most unilateral drone strikes in the history of the office, has killed more innocent civilians than anybody else, has presided over more international disasters as far as, you got Benghazi, right? And then you look at Joe Biden, leaving Afghanistan, and one of the grossest disasters, even worse than the end of the Vietnam War, just purely embarrassing, not just for our military, but for every American. I would say it was one of the biggest reasons why he ended up losing the election. It was just the level of embarrassment. So, I mean, if according to you, and obviously I disagree with this premise, but if according to you, Republicans start wars, the way that Democrats deal with wars and foreign engagement just always lead to either the deaths of innocent civilians or just pure embarrassment in the global stage. Now, all that being said, I just want to finish on one thing. That tomahawk that fell on, that hit a school, that was absolutely atrocious. And I criticized Pete Hegseth, and I criticized Trump and Carolyn Leavitt for trying to cover that over. It shouldn't have been. We shouldn't have been even involved in that in the first place to begin with, obviously. And if you look at the map and how they did it, it was clearly an error in calculation because there were 7 buildings, military buildings. They bombed 6 of them, and they missed one of the military buildings and bombed the school next to it. Obviously, shouldn't have happened. But if you look at that and you look at how Democrats handle foreign conflicts, gross mismanagement and just through the roof civilian deaths.
Yeah, so if I could just respond to those 2 things that you just mentioned, which are not true. First of all, Barack Obama didn't kill more civilians than any other president in my lifetime. That would be George W. Bush in the war in Iraq, where not only did we lose thousands of American soldiers, but we lost hundreds of thousands of innocent Iraqi civilians. So what you said is factually inaccurate.
I said drone strikes. I said unilateral drone strikes.
And I said starting actual wars. Barack Obama did not start a war. So let's be factually accurate there. Let's talk about Afghanistan for a moment. Those soldiers that lost their lives are absolutely tragic. But unfortunately, you just want to focus. I think it was 13 soldiers. I could be mistaken. It was 12 or 13 soldiers that lost their lives. John Bolton, who actually worked in Donald Trump's administration, had said that he had virtually an identical withdrawal. And I will also add that I would be willing to bet you don't know how many soldiers in Afghanistan died under Donald Trump's first administration, okay? But I do. So anybody who dies under any administration, I think we agree, it is horribly tragic. It's awful and it's wrong. But the fact of the matter is that Republicans, I didn't talk about drone strikes. I said, get us involved in wars. We have boots on the ground in Iran. We had boots on the ground in Iraq. George W. Bush got us in an ill-advised war. We lied about weapons of mass destruction. Heck, even Donald Trump agrees on that. It's how he got elected, really, and defeated Jeb Bush in that situation. Barack Obama did not kill more civilians with drones. Listen, the fact of the matter is that Kamala Harris, because going back to Kamala, she would not have got us. Here's the issue with this whole debate. You're dealing in hypotheticals, and which is fine. But
the whole debate's hypothetical.
Hold on. No, it's not. And I'll tell you why. I can give you
Kamala Harris is a hypothetical.
Hold on. I can give you the first year and a half of Donald Trump's presidency here and why his approval ratings are abysmal. And we talked about the Epstein files. We talked about the war in Iran. Those are not hypotheticals. It has been a disaster. Now, you could think, and you could say it's your opinion, Dennis, and that's fine, that I believe Kamala would have done this. Kamala would have done that. Obviously, I disagree with you. Those are hypotheticals. What I am dealing with is what actually has happened in the first 18, 19 months of Donald Trump's administration in an illegal war, an ill-advised war. The Epstein files have been a mess. The economy is a mess. The tariffs have been a mess. What about DOGE?
Well,
okay, so those are not hypotheticals. Those are facts that I'm giving you.
So
you can go ahead.
That's about 20 seconds over I gave you, since Dennis cut it just for a second. Dennis, I'll give you the same amount, and then since he opened, I'll let Brian end, and then we'll get into the Q&A.
Cool. So here's my question to you. If Kamala Harris is such a great candidate, then why is she so deeply unpopular still that she can't even run and hope to win in California? That was her next great step, was to become governor of California. Come in. There were so many polls, so much media saying if Kamala Harris were to join the race, she could win. She has a great possibility. And yet She was polling lower than every single candidate, than even Becerra, than anybody. She had absolutely no chance of winning. So much so that she had to deflect off to a book tour instead of actually going out and running for governor of California, because she stood absolutely no chance. Because, like you even said, she's like your third or fourth choice for a candidate. You'd rather have a corpse in the White House using an auto pen than Kamala Harris. That's who you rather have. You rather have Joe Biden being, like a marionette, just like a little doll, somebody just pulling the strings, Joe Biden or whoever else was running his cabinet at the end his last year, than anybody else, than Kamala Harris. So, I think, like I said in the beginning, I think it's evident Kamala Harris's ability to govern and just how good of a president she would have turned out to be by the sentiment that Democrats demonstrate around her. She was the first candidate in 2020 to drop out. She had to be appointed, a DEI appointment, last minute, to save a dying campaign. So deeply unpopular. Even though she spent over $1 billion in her campaign, she got absolutely wiped. Lost every single swing state, lost the popular vote, got the guy that got voted out last time to win many demographics, and now she's so deeply unpopular that she can't even win a primary in the most Democrat state in the country, where she supposedly could just come in on her reputation, where she's been a leader her entire career. She supposedly could just swoop in on her reputation and win the governorship, where she effectively would just have to win the primary in order to come in and win. That's how easy it is for a Democrat to win in California. But Kamala Harris can't do it because she's awful.
Close it out.
Okay, so responding to what you just said, first of all, you keep, as Donald Trump keeps using the verbiage landslide, this is one of the closest elections we've ever had in American history. As far as the swing states go, Donald Trump won all the swing states by a total of around 350,000 votes. So it was not, what you keep saying, landslide, and what the president keeps saying. That's number one. Number two, I never said, and this is the problem, Dennis, because I don't think you actually listen sometimes to what I say. I never said that Kamala Harris was a, quote, great candidate. Any good candidate would have defeated Donald Trump. I think she made a lot of mistakes. Her campaign made a lot of mistakes, number one. And I think Joe Biden did a big disservice to the country by not stepping down much sooner. I've criticized Joe Biden for that. I think it put Kamala in a very difficult position because Trump was basically campaigning for 4 years. Kamala had about 3 months. I never said Kamala was a great candidate. What I did say is that I would have voted for a ham sandwich over a 34-count felon, liable sexual abuser. That's what I've been very consistent on. And I'm making the argument, not that Kamala was a great candidate. I'm making the argument that she would have been a
third and fourth.
And we wouldn't. And I stand by that. I think there were better candidates out there than her.
Thank you for proving my point.
I don't want Kamala to run again. But if we're talking about Kamala versus
why are you even debating for her then?
Hold on. No, because you're not listening to this and you're totally going over your head. So let me repeat it. If it's Kamala versus Donald Trump, which is what this debate was supposed to be about, I choose Kamala because I don't believe this country would be in dire straits and be in the situation it's in now. That doesn't mean I say she was a great candidate, and it doesn't mean I say that I wouldn't have chosen others over Kamala Harris. That's what this debate was about. It wasn't about whether Kamala was a great candidate. It's whether she would have done a better job, and we wouldn't be in the hell that this country is in right now with an ill-advised war, which we both agree on should not have happened. The Epstein files and the way the Trump administration has handled it, which has been an embarrassment. Pam Bondi's been an embarrassment. Kristi Noem's been an embarrassment, to the point where Donald Trump had to fire them. If we would not have been, and Kamala would have had competent people around her that would have helped her. There are very few Dan Bongino, Kash Patel, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., a woman whose husband ran the WWE. You want to talk about DEI hires?
Let's land the plane there.
I'll call them DE white hires. Donald Trump's administration are
what?
Right-wing buffoons. That's who they are.
Okay. Well, we appreciate you guys getting into that. It was a spirited back and forth there. We didn't even have to do the timed for too long. We're gonna get into the Q&As here, so you guys get your super chats in. Get your tickets to DebateCon 8 in Dallas, Texas. That's gonna be on July 25th and 26th. And then we'll get also, let me see, we'll get the numbers of the early birds that are left hopefully here soon. I don't think it's very many. So if you guys want a cheaper ticket, I would get them now because it definitely will sell out. First super chat is going to be from Alex Medeiros for $5. I believe he's been on MDD before. He says, Brian, when Andrew knocks you out in the boxing match, will you finally realize being a syndicated radio host doesn't mean anything in 2026?
That's a very intelligent statement. So let me just give this imbecile a little background on what has taken place here. Andrew Wilson is obsessed with me. He makes cartoons about me. These people have nothing better to do than to talk about me. I think yesterday there were like 10 podcasts going on, Andrew Wilson being one of them, and there were others that just talk about me, and they get their content from my show. So here's what happened, because this guy is obviously ignorant to facts. After he did that cartoon, which, by the way, I thought was funny. I thought it was a little pathetic, but it was funny. I actually told Andrew I thought it was funny. I immediately sent out a tweet, and I said, I will challenge Andrew to a fight in the ring. Andrew Wilson immediately said he didn't want to do it, and I have the IM to prove that. And actually, I posted that on Twitter. And then the next day, to try to save face, he says, Brian, raised $50,000, which, by the way, I said I would do. And then he kind of walked off of that in private DMs and said, well, let's leave it to somebody else to raise the money. I have all the DMs to prove that. So this guy that's obviously, I guess, a cultist fan of the chain-smoking, alcoholic, imbecile, fake Christian that is Andrew Wilson, and he obviously doesn't know the history behind it. Let me be very clear. I would kick Andrew Wilson's ass and floor him in an instant. I'm in better shape than him. He looks like a 5-foot-tall Buddha and 300 pounds of chewed bubble gum. So thank you for that $5 super chat, you Andrew Wilson cultist buffoon.
Awesome. Thanks for that response. And Dennis, you can respond to them if they're not directed at you. It's up to you. I just ask that keep it short, you know?
Okay, I'm actually trying to look up this cartoon and see where it is.
It's actually pretty funny, Dennis. It's funny, like if some random person put it together, but the fact that Andrew paid money with voiceover work to put, and by the way, this isn't the first cartoon he's done about me. He's done multiple cartoons about me. And by the way, for people that are unaware, I'm going to be debating his wife, Rachel, who I also think is a despicable human being. I'm going to be debating her on the North Carolina campus on April 28th. I've agreed to do that only because I'm getting paid. Otherwise, I'd rather put my penis through a meat grinder than have to debate her on feminism. Yeah,
why do you have to keep giving us these like over sexualized images? I don't want to imagine that. Jesus. So bizarre, dude.
I'm just being honest with you. I mean, it's not really something that I want to do. I've agreed to do it. I guess Andrew's going to be there. I just think Andrew and Rachel are not good people. They're just not good people. They're fake Christians. They're bad people. But anyway, let's go. I love these super chats. I love these fans of yours. I know
why are you calling them fake Christians? Are you? I don't know what your faith. Are you Christian?
Sure. No, I'm not. Why would I call Andrew Wilson a fake Christian?
So why would you? Wait, hold on. You're not Christian, and you're saying somebody's a fake Christian?
Yes, absolutely. You think Donald Trump is a Christian? Is a good Christian man?
It's not up to me to decide. It's between him and the Lord. That's how a Christian sees it.
Okay, well, here's what I do. I call people hypocrites. When people want the 10 Commandments...
I will call them hypocrites too, but this is the thing. In Christianity, everybody's a sinner. So I'm not here to cast judgment. I'm not here to decide who's a Christian or not. I don't know if they've accepted Christ.
Right.
I think that's where we disagree.
So here's where we disagree. When you preach certain things and how people should live their lives, and then you're the one committing sins yourself, you're a hypocrite, hence a fake Christian.
But I think you're ignoring a basic thing in Christianity. Obviously, I don't know everything that you're alluding to, but the thing is, if you accept Christ, there's an understanding that you're a sinner and that you are full of flaws and that you are committing. Obviously, there's the straight and narrow. There's this thing that Jesus says everybody loves to allude to about. Throwing the rock, he says, whoever is without sin, throw the first stone. And then he later says to the woman, go and sin no more. That's a recognition of this process that keeps happening. You end up sinning, you end up falling, and then you are renewed in Christ. You repent, you reform, you refine yourself. So that's why you try to avoid casting judgment and saying who is and who isn't a Christian, because that's between them and their Creator, and they're going to have to pay for that.
So that's my huge issue with religion is many religious people cast judgment on others. They think homosexuality.
Well, you were just casting judgment on them.
Right. Right, because what
So
they
why
do
why
is
can
they-
you do it but other people can't?
I'm giving you the reasoning behind it. You see, I'll give you an example.
So
with
do
Rachel
you
Wilson.
consider yourself
I'll
more
give you-
worthy of doing
I'm
that
gonna-
than them?
I'm gonna give you a direct example.
Okay.
I don't like hypocrites. What Rachel Wilson does, and I'm going to address this with her in person. She tells women how she thinks they should live their lives based on Christianity, but her herself has 3 baby daddies. This is against normal Christian values. Okay. So if you're going to tell other women how to live their life, by the way, I don't care how many baby daddies you have. I don't judge people.
Well, clearly you
Reason why-
do. And you're
Let me
trying to
finish.
measure her. So
No,
here's the
here's
thing. Here's
why.
a hypocrisy in your
You're
own
not
statement.
understanding.
Not only do you care about it, but you're trying to measure her
No,
by
I
a
don't.
standard of a religion
No.
that you don't even practice,
No,
that you don't even
I
fully
don't.
understand.
I
This is the
don't.
thing. You can commit sin. You know the story around Mary Magdalene?
I don't, but you're totally
Exactly. So
misunderstanding my
that
point,
you don't
Dennis.
even have a basis to be
Dennis.
casting this sort of judgment
Dennis.
about Christianity on a Christian when you don't even understand the basis of the religion.
Here's what I.
You're
here's
saying
what I
you're
do
calling
understand.
somebody a fake Christian without even knowing
Yes.
what Christianity is.
Yes.
It's like
Yes,
crazy. It's like
here's what I-
actually
here's what I do.
retarded
It's not
to hear
crazy.
you say
No,
this.
It's not retarded because you don't even understand my point. I'm talking about hypocrisy and the fact how people hide behind their religion to try to hide in their bigotry. And they are hypocrites when they preach to other people how they should live their lives. And they're the ones making those same mistakes that they're telling other people that they shouldn't be doing. Then they are hypocrites. And you're a fake human being. And if you're going to preach God and you're going to talk about the Bible and you're going to be talking about Jesus and you support Donald Trump, then I think you're a fucking asshole. Okay. I'm just telling you like it is. If you're a Christian person and you preach God and you want to talk about morals and you support a 34 count felon, liable abuser, I think you're a fucking asshole.
Well,
Okay?
you know that how does it make you any better the fact that you were just here defending Joe Biden, who, according to his own
What did I
daughter in
say
her
about Joe Biden?
diaries,
let's
he
talk about
molested
that.
her. So I
Sure.
mean, you are pretty much
Where's
on the
the-
same
okay,
boat of
let's talk about
hypocrisy
that.
as everybody
Let's
else you're
talk-
considering.
Real quick,
you know,
guys, one thing I want to add is it looks like there's multiple people in the chat saying Rachel was actually married to all 3 of those gentlemen. So I just want to bring that up.
how
It
could
seems
she
like a
be married
relevant
to all
point.
3 of those gentlemen? That's crazy.
Not at
I
the
did not
same
know
time.
that.
Not at the same time.
Oh, okay. All right,
Obviously,
right.
Okay. Like, you
She
know.
got divorced 3 times.
Well,
I think Brian.
they're giving kind of
Brian, I think you got
some
muted.
mixed-
Yeah.
some mixed chats here, but it looks like
Yeah.
the majority are saying like they weren't necessarily all I guess
Doesn't matter.
one night stands or anything like that.
I didn't
so,
say
I mean,
it
that's
was.
Kind of
I never said it was. So your
just want to
listeners
point out
are
what they're
obviously
saying there.
your listeners obviously don't know. I would ask your listeners to get the MAGA wax out of their ears. I didn't say that.
Oh my
she
God,
cheated.
bro! Why do you
I-
have to
I did-
insult everybody all the time?
Well, because so you don't like people who insult people all the time, yet you voted for the guy who attacks and has nicknames for people. that
No,
he disagrees
I'm
with.
saying like you're just going in. You're instead of actually addressing the point, you're just referring to
I
an
am.
ad hominem
I am.
against the chat because they clearly owned you right now.
Okay, so they owned me because they said she was married when she had.
Yeah,
3
because you don't
different
know the
baby
basis.
daddies.
You don't even know the basis of
do.
what
I
you're
know
trying
that
to
she was
level, the
married.
accusation you're trying
I-
to level.
So the accusation that I'm leveling, which I'm correct on, is because she tells women to have one man, one father. She tells women how to live their lives, and she literally has 3 different baby daddies, which you would call hypocrisy. It's not hard. You don't have to be very intelligent or, as you use the term, retarded to understand the point that I am trying to make here. And yes, I do believe there are a lot of people out there that are fake Christians who support Donald Trump, who holds a Bible upside down and can't recite one verse in the Bible, but call him a wholesome Christian. You also lied. You said Joe Biden, you said that he molested his daughter.
Well, there was a journal entry where that was actually.
What does it say? And what does it say in there? What does it say? Do you even know what
That
it
was
says?
her account. That was in the journal entry.
What was her account? I know what it said. I'm trying to find out if you know, if you have any idea what the hell you're talking about, because I do. And
I'm
I'll
just
tell you
reading
what
the
it said
chat
here.
right now. So explain
I
it.
do
Explain
wanna
it. Go ahead.
apologize
Explain
for
it.
the chat. Is my mic volume still super loud?
Dennis, you don't know what
That's
you're talking about. You have
not-
no idea what you're
Oh
talking
my
about.
God.
You can laugh. You can
Oh
give me that
man, you're
MAGA
getting owned
laugh.
by this chat, dude. Holy cannoli.
Do you think I care what people say in the chat that is a right-wing chat? I've dealt with this forever. When I do Tim Pool's show, me and Tim both agree on this. His fans are all going to attack me. My
you
fans
hear that,
are all
Basil? You're right wing.
I don't care, and I could give two shits what the listeners think about me, and they can all go fuck themselves. I don't care. Okay, here's what I do care about. Okay, accuracy. In Jill Biden's diary, she said borderline inappropriate. She didn't say how old she was. And Joe Biden is not a liable sexual abuser. Joe Biden doesn't have 25 women that have accused him of sexual assault or rape, okay? Donald Trump's own ex-wife in court documents said that he raped her and then he paid her off. So don't try to conflate the two, Dennis. You don't know what you're talking about. And by the way, that diary was in the hands with a guy by the name of Mr. O'Keefe. We don't know. That was never established. And guess who was hanging out with Joe Biden on Easter with his entire family? That's right, Joe Biden's daughter. Okay. I didn't see a family photo of Donald Trump hanging out with his family on Easter. Instead, he was talking about the auto pen and didn't even know where Melania Trump was because he's a demented old man. If you want to talk about sexual abuse, it's the guy who you voted for, not Joe Biden, who you want to call him a child molester, which he's not.
We do have other super chats to get to. So Dennis, if you
I
want
bet we
one
do.
quick last
I
one.
bet we do.
Yeah, let's
they're
go to some of
coming
these
in,
super chats. I just like seeing Brian just spurg out and have a meltdown. It's just so entertaining.
Hey man, I'm just giving you facts. I don't care what people think about me. If I cared about that, I wouldn't be in this business. I could give two shits.
No, I'm on the same
what
boat
people
as
think
you. It's
about
just
me.
funny to see you just
You know?
completely crash out. It's so funny.
I mean, it's called passion. I'm not crashing out. I'm just giving you facts about what was in the diary. You didn't even know what was in there, and you're calling Joe Biden a child molester. It's embarrassing.
I mean, why are you running cover for somebody like that?
Was he found liable for sexual abuse? Why are you running cover?
I mean,
for
you're
somebody like
talking
Donald Trump?
about. Let's talk about E. Jean Carroll. That was a civil case.
Yeah,
Everything
sure,
else
let's
is
talk
just.
about that.
What's that?
Sure, I'm happy to talk about that.
Yeah, E. Jean Carroll was a civil case. Every other case you mentioned, he wasn't convicted, or there was no lawsuit attached to any of it.
Was
Even
Joe
in the
Biden-
Epstein files, everything else is a lot of it is just speculative. I mean,
So
you're once again you're holding two different standards, right? We've seen this play out throughout the entire debate. You'll hold one standard when it benefits you, then you'll hold another when it doesn't. So I mean, it's very evident that you, Brian, are in fact the hypocrite.
So how many people have accused Joe Biden of rape?
His daughter, in her diary.
Not true. You have no idea what the hell you're talking about.
Okay,
This
so
is
let me
very
pull up the
important.
exact
No.
quote here. Let me
Hold
see
on.
exactly.
Okay, I know what the exact quote is.
So cite it.
claimed that
Say the exact quote.
I already told you, you don't listen, okay? She called it borderline inappropriate that she was showering with her father. She never said that her father raped her. So go ahead and prove me wrong, Dennis. You have no idea what the hell you're talking about. This is really embarrassing. And I don't care what people in the chat say, because if you're a Donald Trump supporter, they're going to defend you and they're going to call Joe Biden a pedophile, okay? I don't care what they think. Their opinions mean as much to me as my last bathroom visit. Show me an actual quote from her that claims that her father raped her. Go ahead, Dennis.
Real
And
quick,
then
I do want to
admit that
let
you were wrong.
Brian know we got Andrew in the chat. He said,
Oh, great,
Andrew Wilson
great.
here. Brian,
Shocker.
I own your mind and your soul.
Yeah, well, here's my response to that. I don't make cartoons about middle-aged men on a weekend and pay people to make cartoons. And I don't waste my time doing that. I have better things to do. But Andrew, I look forward to seeing you on the 28th. And as I've challenged you to before, and I'll continue to challenge you, we could have a private conversation, you and me, and we'll see how that goes, pal. Okay, Andrew Wilson and his stupid wife. I can't wait to see both of them in North Carolina.
My God,
Are
brother.
you going to DebateCon?
Oh, you're asking me?
Yeah,
Where
you
is
going
it?
to,
When is that?
It's
When is that?
in Dallas, Texas on July 25th and the 26th.
I don't know. I've never been to that before.
It's awesome, man. I've been to the last three. Kind of fell into helping James kind of
Yeah.
manage the events, and it's a lot of fun, man.
You know, it's really weird, guys, because like, you know, I do a talk show every day, and I talk about, you know, the news of the last 24 hours, the news of the last week, the month. You know, that's really what I do. And I've been getting like 3 or 4 requests to do debates, like literally every day. I'm not exaggerating. And I enjoy them. Don't get me wrong. And you know, Dennis seems like a nice guy. I've got no personal issues with him. I haven't called him any names, have I? Have I? I think I only said get the MAGA X out of your ears. And that was a joke.
Yeah. I
Well,
mean,
that was
you've
still a
been
chat.
you've actually been pretty decent.
Yeah, I don't have a problem. I don't have a because we
This
haven't
chat
gotten
is
personal.
insatiable. I can't be
Of
too
course.
loud. I can't
I
be
have-
too quiet.
I have an effect on people on the right. They seem to, you know, just, and I love it, and I've embraced it. I want MAGA supporters to hate me. I love it. I love the engagement. I love the hate. I wear it as a badge. I love it. So the more that they hate me, the more that I enjoy it. I just want
How's
to be
it-
very clear on that.
How's it sound now, guys? Come on. I don't know why it's.
I'll take as many super chats as you want, my friend.
Real quick, how does it sound now? Just before I read the next super chat. That sounds better? Okay, thank you. Thank you. All right, next super chat is from Basil Problem for $5. He says, guys, a New York City accent with a lisp does not mean you are stupid. Definitely. Praise God. Dennis, I think that was aimed at you, buddy.
At who? At me?
Yeah.
I have a lisp? I didn't know that.
I think it's more the New York accent.
The New York accent, yeah.
Wait,
Well-
are you accusing Dennis of like being a Lindsey Graham? Is that what you guys?
Oh my God. No, don't put me and Lindsay in the same thing. Man, I do
Dennis,
not like those neocons.
I'm actually friends with George Santos. I can't believe I'm admitting that right now. But
You're friends with George Santos? Look at you reaching out across the aisle. You give him a reach around
Dennis,
too?
Dennis, here's something that a lot of people don't know about me. I'm friends with a lot of people on the right.
I know you. To be fair, we met at AmFest. You were there. You were very friendly with everybody. So we debated at AmFest. It was fun. You're a nice guy outside of this context where you're like insulting everybody in the chat, and you're like, oh, I'm gonna get you guys. You're like, for lack of a better word, you're like an angry little leprechaun. You're like,
all right. Last thing, wait, I do got to get to these super chats, so we're gonna be here all night, which I don't want to waste your guys' time.
Yep. I was just going to say that people were very nice to me at AmFest. I was walking around the halls at AmFest. I think I did like 15 different shows. David Pollock is a friend of mine at OAN. Tim Pool is a friend of mine. I've done his show plenty of times. Alex Stein is a friend of mine.
Alex Stein's great. I know Alex.
Yeah. So Dennis, I want to be very clear. I can be friends with people that I disagree with. I think Andrew Wilson and his wife are just awful people. And that's just, there's some people you're not going to like. I think they're terrible people. They're bad faith people.
Wait, are you playing it up to hype up this debate, or do you genuinely believe this? Are you cutting a promo right now, a WWE promo, or is this actually like what you think?
That's funny. But Dennis, I'm going to be completely honest with you. I don't know what they're like in person. I've never met them in person. I've debated. I do Pierce Morgan all the time. I've debated Andrew Wilson, I think, once or twice on there. I don't know what they are like, but I asked Andrew this last night. I said, are you that same person outside of the show? And he said, yes. So, I believe him. I just think they're bad people. And I've heard stories from a lot of people that will not work with them. There's, like I said, there's plenty of people on the right that I am friends with. And I just think Andrew and Rachel are not very good people.
Okay, we'll leave that on that one. Sorry to cut you off if you had a response, Dennis, but we do got to get through these. Basil Problem for another $5 says, Mike, host, would Dr. James Coons approve of the average chat user's BMI? I don't know. You got to ask him, buddy. Right. Next one is the Jabroni Big Time for $5 says, if Brian makes a single argument to back up any of his spurg of assertions, I'll give him $100. You should take him up on that offer. Get that $100 if you can.
Yeah, I think I've made quite a few of those, but again, MAGA wax. Too much MAGA wax in the ears.
All right, Flavius for $10 says, if the Democrats are for democracy, can Brian name one registered Democrat who voted for Kamal, a citizen, not a party official?
Okay, so first of all, it's Kamala. I don't know why they would say Kamal. Second of all, the reason why there were so many people, and I was one of them, that was at the No Kings protest. I was actually in San Diego, is because we care about this country. It's not because we hate the country. We care about threats on our democracy. We care about what Donald Trump is trying to do when it comes to the midterms, because he knows that Republicans are going to go through a bloodbath. I'm pretty sure that Dennis would probably agree with me that it doesn't look too good in the midterms for Republicans. I would assume.
Yeah, it's not a good outlook right now, unfortunately.
Yeah, right. I think that's a fair opinion. And when it comes to democracy, I care about our democracy just as much as anybody else. And I think most people do. I want free and fair elections. I don't want voter fraud. But even Turning Point USA admitted that there's only been like 100 people in the last decade that have voted illegally that are undocumented immigrants. So anyway, I want people to vote legally. Of course, I want elections to be held fairly. And just because you voted for Kamala, I think that's more the reason to believe that you care about our democracy. So I really don't understand that statement to begin with.
All right. We can't understand them all, I guess. Flavius, we appreciate that comment there for 10.
Give me some more mean ones, dude. I have thick skin, bro. Give me some.
All right,
mean
no, we
tweets.
got quite a bit to get through, so strap in, buddy.
I'm glad I'm making you money, man, at my expense. I actually enjoy it. I'm very self-deprecating, believe it or not. So, go for it.
That's respectable in and of itself. So I do appreciate that. Okay, so we got Basil Problem again. He's a big supporter of the channel, even though he constantly talks down on the chat. He punches down, as they say. He says Tucker Carlson called Trump the Antichrist. Is he right?
I think Tucker Carlson is right about the war. It depends what your definition of the Antichrist is. Listen, I'll be honest with you. I'm Jewish, right? A year and a half ago, when people made comparisons to Adolf Hitler and Donald Trump, I didn't like it. I didn't like the comparisons. And now I've changed my mind in this aspect. I understand why people make statements like that, because I think Donald Trump is a fascist and a dictator. The Antichrist, I don't know. I guess everybody has a different definition of what exactly that means. I think he's a dictator. I think he's
Dennis,
a fascist.
what's your opinion on that?
I mean, according to Christian theology, you could potentially see it like that. Do I personally think that he is the Antichrist? No, I don't think. I think that's a little bit of a heightened and dramatic language. I do agree with a lot of what Tucker has been saying recently. I think he's been pretty spot on about this conflict and some of the decisions that went in there into getting us involved with this conflict, our involvement with Israel. But as far as that, to me, when you start getting heightened language like that, and it starts getting a little too dramatic, I have to take a step back. And, I understand if that's your personal feeling, if you think that he's the Antichrist, but, and you could, like with anything else, find a theological explanation to justify it. But though I do believe that, according to Catholic theology, the book of Revelation is largely allegorical, but I do believe that there's going to be some aspect of Revelation playing out in the next few years. But I don't think Trump's the Antichrist.
Speaking of Revelation, Basil Problem with another $5. He said, Alex Jones has denounced Trump. Is Jones crazy?
He has. Now, Alex Jones is a really horrible human being. I actually know families that I've interviewed who have lost loved ones in the Sandy Hook shooting. And remember, he called those parents actors. He's a terrible person. However, I played some of the audio on my show today. Alex Jones was calling for the 25th Amendment. Sometimes a squirrel could find a nut now and then. So yes, I do believe Alex Jones, and I believe he's right when it comes to this war and some of the tweets that Donald Trump has put out recently. So, Alex Jones is right once in a while. And I certainly agree with him today.
Squirrel's whole job.
That's true.
All right. Dennis, any opinion? You want to go to the next one?
I like Alex. I think Alex has been pretty spot on. A lot of the stuff that he was talking about many years ago, people laughed it off, thinking that he was just a crazy kook with conspiracy theories.
Yes.
Well, he's been proven right in a lot of cases. The Sandy Hook case, unfortunately, was a big mistake that he made. But as far as I would say, as far as the Iran take and as far as where we are at culturally and politically and in terms of this war, I think he's been pretty spot on. I think that's why you see such a large coalition on the right of people who are critical of this war, as well as our involvement with Israel. So,
Dennis, is he right when he calls for the 25th Amendment? He did that this morning, and he also did that on his show today.
I think a lot of people rushed to judgment when they saw that tweet. And to be honest with you, it was very alarming to me to see a president tweet out that an entire civilization will be wiped out. Like I said, I had a lot of behind-the-scenes calls today with people in the California and the LA Republican establishment, and we were trying to figure out what's going on, because even though we're Republicans and we're part of the infrastructure here in California and LA, we don't get necessarily all the information from the national level. So we're kind of also trying to figure out. So I'm sure that caused a lot of alarm for a lot of people, and they were like, is he going to nuke people? We saw that report earlier today that the IDF was going to start strategically bombing civilian sites. And when you get a tweet like that after that, you start putting the pieces together. When you leave it up for speculation, it can lead to a lot of unrealistic scenarios. So that's where I think he was coming from. There was a lot of fear, and I think everybody can recognize that tweet caused a lot of fear here in the homeland. And I'm sure that people in Iran, especially their leaders, were thinking very deeply about what they wanted to do and whether or not they wanted to take those concessions.
Well, I'll say this: it caused so much fear that Iran got basically everything they want in this 2 week.
Well, like I
ceasefire.
said,
So
that actually benefits us in the long run. So we're
This
gonna
is,
actually, it's gonna
that's a great
actually, we're
response.
gonna. I just don't want to be involved in that region anymore, you know. But
well, I agree.
Dennis,
but that's
this
yeah.
this next one is going to involve you directly. Barbara Jinx for $2 says, "At Dennis, you look like my cousin if he was a girl."
oh, that's nice. That's a callback to a joke I did many years ago in a roast battle. Thank you. That's an old school fan. That's how you know this person's been around for a minute. This joke is, I think, from like 4 or 5 years ago that I did that joke. So thank you for watching.
Awesome. Basil Problem, another $5 says, "Guys, Deaf Noodles has a lisp, but that doesn't make him a homosexual."
Oh, you're right. Straight men can have lisps. Apparently, I'm one of them.
Listen, I would say that Dennis, you're a really nice guy, and I think you look a little bit more like Ralph Macchio. That's just my personal opinion.
No, I don't
Brian,
talk. I don't
they're gonna
talk like
clip
that
that.
specifically. You got to put
They're
a New
gonna
York
clip it,
accent
Brian.
through that lisp, okay, buddy?
You got to have some clip consciousness, man.
Hey,
Basil
I do.
Problem.
I do. I wish I had that. I knew that when I was debating Alex Stein at AmFest, and I said, Alex, I'm going to do an impersonation of you, and I used the microphone as him performing an act on Donald Trump. I knew that that would be clipped, and it was, and I'm totally okay with it. It's totally fine. Let people have fun with it. It's all good.
All right. Basil Problem, another $5 says, "Modern day debate. Can you reference your peer-reviewed journal article based on your PhD? Thank you for your attention to this matter." He asks that every single time that I host on here.
I'm really disappointed because Dennis was, saying that they were tearing me up in the chat. And by the way, I'm not looking at the chat. Give me something that's mean. Like I haven't heard anything that's.
We'll get there.
All right. Okay.
Okay.
Fair
Well,
enough.
you know what? Ask and you shall receive. Andrew just
Good.
sent $20 in and said, "Ask Brian if he has hair jealousy, and that's why he thinks I am a bad person."
Well, here's what I would be responding to Andrew and saying that I can't control what's on the top of my head, but Andrew can control his weight and his body size. He has the build of Roseanne Barr. So his smoking and his drinking and his alcohol addiction, he has some control over. I don't have mocking a man for something that he has no control over. By the way, there's a lot of women out there that think that being a bald, sexy man is, it's a good thing. So he should maybe try it sometime. But hey,
Name
I would take
one.
a bald. I would take, well, my girlfriend, but I mean, I would take a.
Wait,
a
will she
bald
take you
head.
with hair or without hair? Do you
She
think?
likes without hair. She likes a man that shaves his head. There's some women.
Were you
out there-
bald when you met her?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So she doesn't know what you look like with hair. Or has she seen
No,
your old pictures?
No. Oh, if she's seen pictures, sure.
Does she ever look at your pictures like longingly, like, "Oh, Brian, yeah"? When you-
I've never really had that, but I will say there's a lot of Donald Trump supporters that look at Donald Trump's pictures that way
Yeah.
before they go to sleep at night. I will say that.
You're not wrong. There are people that do that, and you know what they are? They're gay.
Cultist was the word that I was going to use. But
Basil Problem for $5 says, hashtag "a lisp does not make you a homosexual." Right, Noodles? This guy's just sending money to get it.
dude,
Absolutely not.
Get it
Just
across.
keep
Sending you money,
do me a
bro.
favor. Keep
Yeah.
sending them money and asking this,
Yeah.
so that we
Go
can.
ahead.
I want to make them as much money as possible. I'll even
Yeah, I
start
mean,
talking with an actual lisp here for you.
By the way,
But it doesn't
I
make you
find-
gay.
It doesn't
So
make you
Andrew
gay.
Andrew Wilson's in the chat. It's like I was in his chat yesterday because somebody had texted me that he was talking about me randomly, but it's like I think I've been in his chat like twice. The guy follows me everywhere. It's like stalkish behavior. It's very strange. Very strange. By the way, Dennis, you got to watch that cartoon. It will make
I have to watch it. I have it. I'll watch it afterwards, but it looks funny.
Jackal15 said for $10 says, quote, "You're not tougher than me, okay? You're not smarter than me. I'm sure a lot of people tell you that you're really smart, but you're not smarter than me, okay?" Brian Ben Shapiro. They probably got that confused. I think
Ben?
it's supposed to say Brian.
Yeah, I mean, Ben's a little
Prize
weasel.
Fighter
so
2026.
I'm definitely not going to defend Ben Shapiro. I think he's a little weasel and he's
Are you guys
embarrassment.
related? The people want to know.
No, absolutely not. That little weasel. By the way, Israel could bomb every single country in the world, and Ben Shapiro would still find a way to defend Benjamin Netanyahu. He's a little weasel piece of garbage. A piece of garbage. So Matt
Brian,
Walsh, all
so
those
I have
people
a
over there
question
are
for you. And I think because you can help me since we kind of share some similar positions, you can help me understand this. But I've been relatively critical of Israel, of the state of Israel specifically, not the Israeli people.
Yeah.
I think there's a difference between the government and the people.
Sure. Sure.
But isn't it interesting how in politics, this has been something that's been going on for many years, but it's ramped up as of the last couple of years. You cannot criticize the state of Israel without being almost immediately labeled an anti-Semite. That's
bullshit.
a problem, right?
It's
You see how
bullshit.
that's a problem?
Yeah. So Dennis, I'm glad you brought that up. It's such bullshit. First of all, I've admitted I was wrong on the air. A couple of years ago, I called Mehdi Hassan an anti-Semite. I'm sure you probably don't agree with his politics, but I admitted that I was wrong. And I said this on Piers Morgan because I was asked about this. Just because you criticize the Israeli government absolutely does not mean you're anti-Semitic. And anybody who says that is a moron. I am pro-Israel, meaning I love the Israeli people. I think they're wonderful people. I've been to Israel. Benjamin Netanyahu and the Israeli government are so corrupt. It's part of the reason why we went to war in Iraq. It's definitely a big reason why we went to war in Iran. I'm tired of handling their business. If they want to nuke Iran and they want to have a war with Iran, let them do it. We should not be a part of it. I think we agree on that. And I am not here to defend the Israeli government. I think it's just, I've changed my position in the last couple of years on it. And yeah, to answer your question, absolutely not.
Would you be for
anti-Semitic.
cutting aid completely to Israel, all aid?
At this point, at this point, yes, Dennis, yes.
And
yes.
what about registering AIPAC under FARA?
I'd have to think a little bit more about that. I might have a more nuanced answer to that. But as far as your first question, absolutely. I am tired. You see, the war in Ukraine, and I know you didn't bring that up, but listen, if Iran had invaded Israel and started bombing Israel, Dennis, I would have a different position, right? But that wasn't happening. That wasn't happening. It's not to say that Iran didn't want to do that, but they didn't start this war. Okay, so I'm done with the Israeli government. I'm done with funding this war. I've had it. And
it's very strange too how we're like even as this war is playing out, there's no conversation about what's happening in southern Lebanon. Israel's just bombing that place to hell. They're doing what they did in Gaza down there under the justification they're going after Hezbollah. But
Dennis, I've been very critical of Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib as well. I think they're both despicable human beings. I think they're anti-Semitic. So I don't think AOC is, but I'm critical of Democrats on my show almost every single day. Listen, Tlaib is an awful human being. Ilhan Omar is just awful. I think they're just terrible people. But I will say this. A couple of years ago, I would have said, yeah, the Democrat Party has an issue with anti-Semitism. But now there's a lot of groypers out there. You know what I'm talking about. They were all over at AmFest. I was talking to Michael Knowles about this. They were all over AmFest. You have a bunch of Myron Gaines types that are hanging out there as well. So now you guys also have an issue with anti-Semitism as well.
Well, I think
it's on both sides.
Here's the thing. I think the label Groyper is just getting, there's so much stuff that's being thrown into that. Label is just being loaded up, and it's being strategically used in the Republican Party right now to just purge people. It's not necessarily what it actually even initially was meant to be, right? It's just a watcher of Nick Fuentes. I don't think Myron Gaines is necessarily a Groyper. So to call him a Groyper he's somebody who's critical of Israel, and yes, some of his opinions are pretty out there, and you can disagree or agree with him. He's an entertainer at the end of the day. He's not like somebody who's in party infrastructure, and I think it's really weird when people keep bringing him into policy discussions as though like Myron Gaines said this. I'm like, bro, the guy's an entertainer. He says some stuff that I don't agree with and edgy stuff, but
Quickly, I just want to say there's a difference between being critical of the Israeli government and being a Holocaust denier. Okay, there's a difference. He called me dreidel spinner. I've been called the K word. I'm not going to repeat it, not by Myron, but by one of his boys at a debate in Phoenix, and I wanted to knock him out. So I think there's a difference between being critical of Israel and then wearing a shirt, the type of shirt that Myron Gaines wore into AmFest, which I've talked to Jack Posobiec about, and Jack doesn't want him back. So there's nothing wrong. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, just to talk about that shirt, I don't think most people even knew the meaning of that shirt when he was walking around. To be fair,
he did.
Yeah, well, he did, but I saw him. I took a picture with him moments before Jack Posobiec took that picture with him. I had no idea what that shirt meant at that moment.
But Dennis, I hear you. I understand what you're saying, but my point being is that Myron knew exactly what that shirt represented, and he wore it into Amfest. It's utterly despicable, and there should be no room for that in both parties. That's anti-Semitic, and it's awful. It's awful.
Let the man have his rage bait. Speaking of Israel, Even Lord 7825 for $5 says, from the Nile to the Euphrates, from the Siani to the Taurus Mountains, long live Israel. Brian, or he actually spelled brain, why don't you support your people in Israel? Which I think you just cleared that up. So
yeah,
you don't have to really get into that one.
Really stupid. First of all, I don't consider them my people. You know who my people are? My family and my friends. They might have the same religion I have, but it doesn't mean I'm going to defend them at odds end. But I do defend the Israeli people in general. I defend innocent people all over the world, just as the same as I would defend innocent people in Gaza, innocent Palestinians, innocent people in Iran that are dying. They're human beings, and I defend them. So no, I don't. Yeah.
Sorry, I was going to say Travis Rice, 1745, would like you to defend yourself here for $5. He said, Brian, why'd you scam that lady to pay to get your teeth fixed?
Yeah, unfortunately, there's a lot of idiots on social media that spread a lot of weird rumors about me. I will say this, and I've talked about this publicly, the last year and a half, 2 years of my show, I've had death threats. And as my show has become more popular, I've had a lot of people that said everything about me, from that I abuse women, to that I'm a rapist, to that I scam people out of money, to that somebody paid for my teeth. It's all a lie. I will say this. In regards to certain individuals, I've had to file restraining orders against people because they wouldn't leave me alone. There are people that literally put up screenshots that are fabricated screenshots of crazy things. I will also end the statement by saying this. I've never been arrested in my life. I've never been convicted or charged with a crime in my life. So all of these people on the right that want to spread these really bizarre and strange rumors about me, please keep it going. It helps me with engagement, and I greatly appreciate all of you, even though it's not true.
All right. Andrew Thrasher, 3519, sends $20 in. Thank you, Andrew Thrasher. This is not Andrew Wilson's alt.
That's good.
He says, good evening, modern day debate. Former senior airman Andrew Thrasher here. Brian, how do you criticize anyone without an ethical framework? How do you make any assertion without knowing the laws of logic? How, Brian? N1SB.
So I think we have an Andrew Wilson fan, Andrew 2.0, who likes to get into ethical philosophy word games. That would be like me saying, well, you don't have a worldview. How can you say murder is bad? How can you say rape is bad? I don't get into conversations with these complete imbeciles out there. Again, that's an Andrew Wilson, Jay Dyer fan who wants to get into philosophical debates. What I debate people on is kind of like what we've done with Dennis, which I appreciate. We talk about policy, we talk about the presidency, we talk about things we agree or we might disagree with. So that guy can pleasure himself to his Donald Trump poster tonight before he goes to sleep. I'm not even interested in talking to people like that.
Fair enough. You ever listen to Jay Dyer's music?
No, I have listened to Tim Pool's music though, and I did debate Jay Dyer.
I've never listened to Tim Pool's music. I'd like to check.
It's actually pretty good. He's a good musician. It's actually pretty good.
Yeah, it's actually pretty decent. It's like, what is it, like emo?
Yeah, Dennis, have you done his show?
I have not done Tim Pool yet. No.
He rated me when I was hosting on here one time.
That's cool.
That was the first time I ever got rated.
I'm supposed to be doing a show again in May. In fact, my friend David Pollack is doing his show Friday. Yeah, listen, I treat people the way they treat me, right? Tim Pool has been very nice to me, even though I disagree with his politics. His people have been very nice to me, so I'm going to treat them with respect.
Yeah, he seems like a fair guy, to be honest with you. He has people from all sides of it, the spectrum, and it seems like it's a conversation, but he's not the kind of guy who will shy away from like challenging you if he sees something wrong.
Tim has some liberal ideology that people don't really know. I actually agree with him a lot of stuff. There's things I obviously disagree with him on. But my motto is I try to match people's energy, right?
Fair enough. Let's match some speed right now. I got to get through these facial problem chats.
Nice pivot.
Yeah, he said for $5, reminder, goobers like Wi-Fi Gospel and others defended the state killing of Renee Good and Alex Pretty. Shout out Wi-Fi. You guys kind of touched on that a little bit in the debate, so let's speak to this. ZQ, XQ4295 for $5 says, "How do you get evidence for something without an investigation?"
How do you get evidence with something? What specific situation is he? I don't know what he's talking
I
about.
think that was probably actually in context of the ICE shooting.
Yeah, so in the Renee Good situation, they were about to investigate ballistics and blood spatter, and they actually stopped because Kash Patel told them to stop. I know people that were 20 feet away from that shooting, and they weren't even interviewed by the FBI. So there hasn't been a full investigation. In fact, Todd Blanche said there will be no investigation, which is disgusting. In any officer involved shooting, I don't care what it is, there has to be an investigation. My understanding is there is one that's being conducted in the Alex Preddy situation. Thank God. But Renee Good, they didn't have an autopsy. They didn't do ballistics. They didn't do any of that stuff, which obviously is necessary. And I find that absolutely disgusting.
Not even at the state level?
No,
No
Todd
county
Blanche
level
has
investigation? Nothing?
No,
So Tim
no.
Walz and Jacob Frey both didn't order any sort of investigation?
Because they blocked it, Dennis. They blocked it. They didn't allow them to investigate. They took the evidence. What they did was against the law, and then it was Kash Patel who told them to stop. They didn't do that in the Alex Preddy shooting, but they did do that in the Renee Good shooting, and that's why I think that Officer Jonathan Ross probably would have been found guilty. But we'll never know. Here's the difference, right? If there's an independent investigation, and that independent investigation found that Officer Ross was in the right, then I would live with it. I've never called Kyle Rittenhouse a murderer. Do you want to know why? Because they found him not guilty in a court of law. Even though I think he's an idiot, I've never called him a murderer. All I've ever wanted was an independent investigation. Let's be fair about this. A woman is dead. That hasn't happened. I think it's disgusting.
Well, wouldn't that open up the state and the county and even the federal government to huge liability? Like her wife could just sue the hell out of...
She is.
She is? Okay.
Yeah, there's lawsuits, civil lawsuits, and she'll probably win. Listen, I just want people, we should have had an independent investigation. Let's find out what really happened. We all saw the video. Everyone has different opinions on what should or shouldn't have happened. We know that he broke proper protocols. I've actually debated Myron Gaines on this, who was in law enforcement. He broke multiple protocols, but I try to be fair. I just want independent investigations into any officer involved shooting.
This is kind of related. She didn't send any money, but I just want to give it a quick read. Tiny Tina says, "One first rule of logic is don't go to a fight. The other guy has a gun." I just thought that was funny.
That's a good point. Don't hit the gas if you got a cop standing right in front of you with a gun.
Yeah, we're not living in Nazi Germany. So just because somebody has a gun,
okay, all right, just immediately appeal to Hitlerium. Okay, I see it.
Yeah. Well, just because somebody has a gun, that's not a defense for what happened. I think we all can agree on that.
I mean, we can look at it in context, everything that happened. I mean, obviously not saying that she was asking for it, but the fact that she had been obstructing ICE operations all day. There's several reports. Even her wife said it. Her wife tells her to hit the gas. There's an ICE officer standing in front of a car. That's the last thing you want to do. Let's just look at common sense, right? That's hitting the gas when there's an officer in front of your car. That's the last thing you want to do. Can we at least agree on that?
I would agree on that, but I would also agree the last thing you should do if you're an ICE officer against proper protocol is walk behind the vehicle and then stop in front of the vehicle with a cell phone in one hand and a gun in the other. Can we also agree on that?
Well, he didn't actually stop. He was in the process of circling the front. There was another officer that's walking to the car to open the door, and her wife says, "Hit the gas, hit the gas."
Yeah. So there's a lot of protocols that were broken. First of all, it's not de-escalation. When Jonathan Ross started that video and she says, "I'm not mad at you, dude," he could have started a conversation with her and said, "Ma'am, here's what we're going to need you to do. We're going to need you to get out of the car. If you don't get out of the car, we're going to arrest you." Do I wish Renee Good got out of the car? Absolutely. Do I wish she didn't try to leave? Absolutely. But that doesn't necessarily mean it justified shooting her in the face several times. And that's why I want an independent investigation.
Well, the rules of engagement in that sense, and I'm obviously, I don't want her to get shot. I'm in the same boat as you. But if we look at this legally, the rules of engagement, if you are under suspicion that if as a police officer that your life is threatened by a weapon, especially a vehicle being considered a weapon in the court of law, right?
If you guys want to get another debate set up, I could do that. Just email me and we'll do that because this could spiral into a long thing there. Rob Skywalker for $10 says, "To all you Trump supporters and Andrew Wilson fans who disagree with Brian, call into his show and make your stance. You're tough in the chat, but you'll never call in.
It is such a great point. Dennis, I don't know if you're aware of this, but on my show every day, I open up the phone lines for an hour and a half to
Mhm.
everybody. In fact, I would rather have people call into my show that disagree with me. I have more people on the right that I have as guests on my show than people on the left. I've debated Caroline Leavitt, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. So that's a really good point that guy made. For all the tough
Did-
guys that are on the chat, they don't have the balls to call into my show and actually have a conversation with me. So
Hey,
I
call
appreciate
into the
that.
show,
It's
have a
a
conversation.
conservative
It's good. You know, it's good to have dialogue with people you disagree with, because that's really, I
agree.
abide by the iron sharpens iron thing. So, you know, if you,
James, I'm sorry to cut you off. James, I'm sorry. What did you say? Did you say? What did you?
No, my name's Mike.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mike. Mike, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, brother.
It's all
I saw
good.
that. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm Timu
yeah.
James, according to the
Gotcha.
chat. But
Gotcha.
related to your or me saying that we could turn that into another debate, Alexander Medeiros said you already ran from a debate on ice with me, but I would gladly school you on both the Renee Good and Alex Pretty situation
Who are you
anytime.
talking about? Who is this guy?
That's
Who are you
Wi-Fi
talking about?
Gospel.
Okay, I don't debate random people and people that don't. People.
Well,
don't
wait,
no,
but
know
you
who
just
they are.
said, you just
He
asked
is
them to
a
call in right
regular
now.
debater.
Okay, but hold on. There's a difference between somebody calling into my radio show and then actually scheduling an actual long form debate, Dennis, like you and I are having.
Wait, but people are saying in the chat, you mute and don't let anyone talk.
Yeah, anybody could listen to my show and say that's absolutely not true. What I do is when I pod people down and mute people is when they mischaracterize things that I say things that are completely stupid, and they interrupting me and they're not letting me respond. I open up my phone lines to anybody that would like to call in. If they're respectful to me, I'm going to be respectful to them. And if they don't like that, then don't call in. But I'm just saying I open up my phone lines every day to everybody, and that's an excuse for people not to call into my show because they're not probably don't have the brain capacity to have a conversation with me, and that's okay. Everybody's created differently.
This other guy who sent $10 in from California, I'm not your buddy guy, 9713. You could consider this like a call in, but it's a comment in. He says, question for Shapiro. Why do you always manipulate the truth? Do you not have a conscience? Are you intellectually challenged, or are you so blinded by your hatred that you refuse to see the truth?
Sure. So here's what I would respond if that guy called into my show and I would say, okay, how have I manipulated the truth? Notice how he didn't give one specific example. So if you're going to say I'm a liar, which by the way, I don't mind if people say that, but I would ask you next, what did I lie about? What specifically did I say to quote unquote manipulate the truth? And probably